Chapter 1090, Devastating the Yama Hall. 1. All the experts of the Tyrant's Blade School became utterly astounded when they heard this story that was sounded like a fairy tale. Their horizons had been broadened. The founder really is remarkable to know such a heaven-defying technique. All the experts began to curry up to him. All of them felt extremely emotional. Their founder had actually revived and could masterfully wield the Emperor Armament. This was a blessing for the Protector clan. Many of them could even see a future where the Tyrant's Blade School would surpass the 9 other Protector clans. My 9 other good friends chose the same method as me to be revived. Has there been any disturbances with the 9 other Protector clans lately? Bi Dao questioned. Founder, it has all been peaceful with the 9 other Protector clans. It's just that an unprecedented genius has appeared in the Changyang clan, reaching Saint King in less than 100 years, the elderly great elder politely replied. Gui Dao snapped open his eyes as he thought inside, he really is an unprecedented genius to reach Saint King in less than 100 years. He would be a genius even in the saints' world. Though, I feel like he can't be that friend of mine. Gui Dao sat in silence for a while before he then said, I've only just reached Saint King. All of you leave. I need to go into seclusion over the next period of time and recover my strength from before as soon as possible. Yes, Founder. All the experts of the Protector clan replied together before slowly leaving. Soon after that, the world gate of the Tyrant's Blade School closed, completely cutting off all connection from the Tianyuan continent. The revival of the founding ancestor was an extremely important matter to the Protector clan. To prevent it from being leaked, they sealed the entire realm, just in case there was anyone who wanted to harm the founding ancestor before he recovered his strength. A small valley that barely anyone knew about existed at the edge of the Cross Mountains. The entire valley was covered by a faint barrier, while simple and honest villagers lived their lives there. They farmed for their own food, passing their days steadily and away from worldly affairs. Today, a space gate suddenly appeared outside the barrier in the quiet little valley. The white-clothed Jianshan emerged with the black-robed Heiyu, before entering the valley. The barrier outside the valley was used to repel attacks from magical beasts, so the two of them easily passed through it. Longevity Valley seemed the same as before. Jianshan made his way down the familiar path of the village. A few farmers in the field saw Jianshan. They greeted him enthusiastically, while Jianshan responded with a smile and some light responses. Jianshan found Uncle Xiaomi in the village spinning a new wicker basket. Half of Xiaomi's hair had already turned gray since the last time Jianshan saw him, even his eyebrows had grayed a little. Jianshan, you've finally returned. Xiaomi was not surprised at all with Jianshan's return. He stopped what he was doing, dusted off his hands, and stood up. Uncle Xiaomi, your hair. Surprise and doubt filled Jianshan's eyes as he stared at Xiaomi's white hair. Xiaomi freely smiled, it's nothing. I'm just approaching the end of my life, that's all. Jianshan's heart trembled when he heard that. He said, Uncle Xiaomi, what did you say? You're approaching the end of your life? How much more time do you have? Heaven Saint Masters only have 1,000 years of life. I've lived for more than 1,000 years already. If it weren't for the 10,000-year heavenly resources from Father, would have died long ago. I have roughly 30 or 40 years left, Xiaomi sighed. His face became filled with indescribable melancholy. Uncle Xiaomi, don't you worry. Before that time, I will do everything I can so you can reach Saint Ruler, Jianshan sternly said. When his saint weapon had shattered back then, it was Uncle Xiaomi who had brought him to Longevity Valley, thus saving his life. He definitely could not just watch Uncle Xiaomi approach the end of his life. Xiaomi shook his head, Jianshan, I thank you for your kindness, but don't waste your efforts. I can never become a saint ruler. Impossible. That can never be the case. I will definitely find a way, Jianshan swore. Jianshan, he's congenitally incomplete. He can never reach saint ruler. Heiyu spoke from beside Jianshan. What? Congenitally incomplete. Jianshan became stunned. He asked, Uncle Xiaomi, what is this about? Xiaomi gently sighed, I need to start the story with my mother. 1,000 years ago, my mother died in the battle between the Bloodsword sect, the Yama, and the Underworld sect. At that time, I was still a fetus and not born. Originally, I was supposed to die in my mother's belly, but I was saved by my father in the end. Although my life was left intact, I was not born normally, so I have always been congenitally incomplete. I don't have any birth defects, but my talent is horrendous, and it can't be altered even with heavenly resources. I can't reach Saint Ruler either. My father had even once said that for me to reach heaven, Saint Master had caught him by surprise. Isn't there any other way to make up for this incompletion? Jian Chen asked urgently. Xiaomi shook his head and gently smiled. Actually, everyone will face death. Even great saint emperors only have a lifespan of 10,000 years. I am only leaving first, and everyone will end up like me sooner or later. I have already gotten past death. Jian Chen fell silent as he struggled to accept the situation inside. Xiaomi pulled out a divine hall from his space ring and passed it to Jian Chen. He said, Jian Chen, my father has already gone into seclusion. Before he left, he specially made me give this divine hall to you. This divine hall is the foothold for the Bloodsword sect on the continent. It's controlled by the sect masters of every generation, and now that you've become the sect master, this divine hall should be yours. Jian Chen accepted the divine hall as he stared at Xiaomi with mixed emotions. He solemnly said, Uncle Xiaomi, it doesn't matter if there's no hope. I will try to find methods to help you. Xiaomi shook his head. Jian Chen, I am destined to not reach Saint Ruler, so don't waste your efforts. Now that my father doesn't have much time left either, if he departs as well, there'll only be little Fatty and his mother left. If you want to help me look after little Fatty and Shelly. Shelly used to be the young lady of a great clan. After marrying me several decades ago, she has spent her time with me in this valley that completely cuts us off from the rest of the world. It's been too hard on her. Xiaomi felt ashamed. For Xiaomi to not feel any regrets, Jian Chen swore to look after little Fatty and his mother. He then asked Xiaomi where the Yama Hall was located. Jian Chen, have they offended you since you're looking for them so suddenly? Xiaomi immediately brightened up when he heard about the Yama Hall. He stared at Jian Chen in interest. Correct, replied Jian Chen. The location of the Yama Hall is always extremely well hidden. It changes often, so they have no fixed location. However, they can't hide it from the investigators of our Bloodsword sect no matter how they try. The matters of the Bloodsword sect used to all be handled by me, so I just happen to know where they're located. 1,000 years ago, my mother died to the combined attacks of the experts from the Yama Hall and Underworld sect. I've never seen my mother's face. My father still holds extremely deep hatred for the two organizations even though he stepped away from the continent over the past few years. It's just that he swore to my mother in the past, so my father's been enduring the hatred within him and did not wipe out the two organizations. Jian Chen, if it's possible, I hope you can wipe out the Yama Hall for us and take revenge for me, mother. A cold light flickered in Xiaomi's eyes. Don't worry, Uncle Xiaomi. Since you can't take revenge personally, leave it to me, Jian Chen swore. After learning the location of the Yama Hall, Jian Chen left Longevity Valley with Heiyu. However, Jian Chen remained heavy-hearted due to Uncle Xiaomi reaching the end of his life. If he had not brought Jian Chen into Longevity Valley back then, Jian Chen probably would have been reduced to a cold corpse long ago. It would have been impossible for him to still be alive and attain such great accomplishments. Although he did not care about his own death at all, Jian Chen did not want to watch him just die from old age. Senior Heiyu, is there really no method for Uncle Xiaomi to reach Saint Ruler? Jian Chen asked Heiyu. Heiyu shook his head. He's congenitally deficient in his soul, so he can't comprehend the mysteries of the world. Naturally, he can't reach Saint Ruler either. Honestly, it's already extremely surprising that he could reach Heaven's Saint Master with his current circumstances. Jian Chen's mood grew even heavier, and he said nothing more. Jian Chen summoned Roy Jin, Hong Lian, and the White Tiger from the artifact space, before passing through a space gate to Flame City. He called all the Saint Rulers that had joined the Flame Mercenaries, only leaving behind Jetta Tai to watch over the city. Jianshan left with Roy Jean, the 5 saint rulers, and the others through another space gate that took them to where the Yama Hall was located. The assassins of Yama Hall had once made an attempt on Jian Chen's life. They were also the murderers of Uncle Xiaomi's mother, people who owed a blood debt to Uncle Xiao's family. As a result, Jian Chen needed to wipe out the Yama Hall whether it was for his own revenge or for Uncle Xiao's revenge. However, if he did it under the name of the Flame Mercenaries, it would make them even more famous. Jian Chen's group of 9 along with the winged tiger god arrived through a space gate. They traveled threateningly toward the Yama Hall, and just as they arrived, the news that the Flame Mercenaries wanted to deal with the Yama Hall of the 3 great assassination organizations quickly spread through the Flame Mercenaries. The news immediately caused a very large disturbance in Flame City, before spreading like wildfire. Every single person who heard the news became astounded. Chapter 1091, Devastating the Yama Hall. 2. The Flame Mercenaries want to take on the Yama Hall. It'll be troublesome for the Yama Hall now, not necessarily. The Flame Mercenaries may be very strong, but they have only developed in the past few decades after all. On the other hand, the Yama Hall has stood on the Tianyuan continent for over 100,000 years. Their heritage is very great, so if the Flame Mercenaries want to wipe them out, it won't be easy. The Flame Mercenaries already have the capability to take on the Yama Hall. Both of them will suffer great casualties from this battle. The Flame Mercenaries has already reached into the millions. I wonder how many people they are going to mobilize. The matter about the Flame Mercenaries clashing with the Yama Hall became the center of attention for many people. Many of them discussed the news. In a desolate region of the Tianyuan continent, a pitch-black palace stood quietly in a group of mountains. The palace was covered by boulders, so even if someone flew over from above, they would struggle to notice its existence. It was extremely well hidden. The black-clothed Bi Dao sat in a room within the palace. He was pale white while an odd gleam of light flickered in his eyes, like 2 dancing will-o-wisps. Walls of flames connecting the floor to the ceiling of the room surrounded Bi Dao, trapping him there. Although the flames lacked any heat, they possessed a stunning force. Not only could they scorch the air, they could even melt space, causing the space around the flames to distort and warp. Brat, you've really brought disaster to me. You've actually entered the divine hall of the Yama Hall. Now we're both trapped here, Venerable Poison's Word said with a sunken face. His resentment for Bi Dao had already become bone deep. Over the past few days of being trapped here, Venerable Poison's Word had tried many times to charge out, but every attempt was obstructed by the black flames. The flames were called demonic hellfire, and they were extremely harmful to the soul. They restrained Venerable Poison's Word, who was just a soul. I didn't think that they'd be people of the Yama Hall either, let alone the fact that this would be such a powerful divine hall, Bi Dao said with a communication technique. His voice was extremely stern. He had miscalculated, underestimating this group of murderers. Ha ha ha, descendant of the Bi family, have you thought it through? Are you going to hand over the beast fur or not? If you do, we might be able to give you a chance and spare your life. Otherwise, there will only be death. A husky voice rang from the darkness as a black-cloaked man slowly appeared outside the flame. He coldly stared at Bi Dao. Venerable Poison Sword's flickering eyes locked onto the man. He became hesitant as he thought inside, that brat's actually gotten me trapped in this divine hall, and my soul is being injured by the demonic hellfire. I don't have much power left either, so it's impossible for me to escape. There is only death. I need to find another way to survive. He finally made up his mind after hesitating. Clenching his teeth, he said, "Call the Yama of your organization. I have something to say to him." Have you finally made up your mind? I am the Yama, so go on ahead, laughed the man. Yama, I am Venerable Poison's Word who once freely wandered the continent. After facing the end of my life, I used a secret technique to protect my soul, and now I share the same body as this brat, Bi Dao. If you can assist me in taking over this body, I am willing to help your Yama Hall do 3 things. Of course, I will also head over that beast fur you are talking about, said Venerable Poison's Word. Old bastard, you've betrayed me. Bi Dao fell into a fury as his soul immediately began to struggle. He wanted to forcefully break free of Venerable Poison Sword's restraint and regain control of his body. Venerable Poison's Word? Is it that Venerable Poison's Word who had a foot planted in Saint Emperor and clashed against a Saint Emperor 10 times without suffering defeat? The Yama became surprised, and his eyes immediately lit up. Correct, that's me. Venerable Poison's Word raised his chest and pridefully replied. His eyes flickered violently as he did everything he could to restrain Bi Dao. The Yama stared at Venerable Poison's Word for a while before coldly laughing. He said, I never thought it would actually be the infamous Venerable Poison's Word. Though, you should know that once you enter this divine hall, there's only death unless a Saint Emperor comes personally. Right now, your life is completely in my hands. If you want it back, 3 things is far from enough. Then I will do 10 things, Venerable Poison's Word said with a deep voice. No, that's still not enough. Venerable, if you want to live, there is only one way, and that is to join our Yama Hall and become a Protector King, chuckled the Yama. Okay, I agree. Venerable Poison's Word agreed in the end after hesitating a little. The Yama immediately began to laugh without restraint. I welcome Venerable Poison's Word for joining our Yama Hall. Before he could finish speaking, a violent boom rang from outside. The entire divine hall violently shook, and both the Yama and Venerable Poison's Word stumbled since they were completely caught off guard. They almost fell. God damn it, what's happening? The Yama's face changed, and he immediately vanished into the darkness. When he reappeared, he was on the top floor of the divine hall. Cracks had already appeared on the ceiling of the divine hall as streaks of sunlight flooded in. They illuminated the dark interior slightly. The divine hall's been broken. The Yama immediately paled in fright as he looked at the crack. He involuntarily cried out, has there been a Saint Emperor who has come to destroy our divine hall? Although he was shocked, he responded extremely quickly. With a flip of his hand, a few pieces of jade appeared, and he immediately crushed all of them. Figures moved about within the divine hall, and the 10 Protector Kings, completely shrouded in black cloaks, appeared by the Yama's side. They stared at the cracked ceiling in shock. Outside, Jian Chen, Roy Jin, Heiyu, Hong Lian, the White Tiger, and the 5 saint rulers of the flame mercenaries levitated above as they stared down at the black divine hall. Heiyu wielded a machete as he radiated with a chilling pressure. It was the weapon that possessed origin energy. The 5 saint rulers stood side by side behind them. They carried a huge banner, the banner of the flame mercenaries. This divine hall's rather tough. It must have been made by an extremely powerful Saint Emperor. I'd like to see how many times it can endure my attacks though, sneered Heiyu. Another powerful blade chi appeared out of nowhere and struck the divine hall, causing it to tremble violently once more. It shattered quite a few rocks in the surroundings while the cracks grew larger. May I inquire which senior has come, and why you are targeting our Yama Hall? Has our Yama Hall offended you in any way? A husky voice rang out from within, but the person did not appear. The captain of the flame mercenaries, Jian Chen, has come personally. Yama Hall, why don't you hurry up and come receive him? The saint ruler carrying the banner called out. His voice was thunderous, spreading through the surroundings. So it's Captain Jian Chen. My Yama Hall has failed to welcome you from afar, so please forgive us. However, may I ask when have we offended Captain Jian Chen? The Yama's voice rang out from within. Many years ago, I was targeted by your organization in the City of God when I moved around under the name of Yang Yutian. I've come for revenge today, Jian Chen coldly answered. Captain Jian Chen, I am the current master of the Yama Hall. I did not know about this, but I will definitely investigate the matter with everything I have. If it is true, we are willing to hand over the assassin who targeted you back then. I hope Captain Jian Chen can spare the Yama Hall, the Yama submissively replied. He had heard about Jian Chen long ago, and he knew that Jian Chen was someone that even the 10 Protector clans could do nothing to. It won't be that simple. Senior Heiyu, please destroy this divine hall for me, Jian Chen said coldly as dense killing intent appeared in his eyes. I've never felt what it's like to destroy a divine hall, so let me try it today. He Yu became rather excited, before flying up to the divine hall. His machete glowed with a dazzling light as he mercilessly chopped at the divine hall. Bang! 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 Violent sounds constantly rang out. Every strike from He Yu was no weaker than a Saint King's attack. The divine hall quickly began to shatter under He Yu's constant attacks. The entire top portion of the divine hall was removed. The trembling of the divine hall had already alerted all the assassins within it. Many of them lost their usual composure and began to panic. The demonic hellfire on the first floor of the divine hall disappeared. Bi Dao's eyes flickered while Venerable Poison's word remained in control. He gazed at the shaking divine hall in shock and suspicion as he murmured, "What's happening to the Yama hall? Why is the trembling so powerful? Has an enemy come for revenge, and are they attacking the divine hall right now?" He immediately became extremely emotional when he thought what could be happening. He seemed to see hope of escaping. Chapter 1092, Devastating the Yama Hall, 3, Bi Dao, you brat, how dare you place me in jeopardy, almost dooming me eternally. Once I get out, I'll let you have it real good. Don't blame me for not showing you mercy now that you've acted so heartlessly, Venerable Poison's word viciously said. Venerable Poison's word, aren't you going to keep the promise between us? Bi Dao coldly asked. His voice was hoarse. Keep it, my ass. You've made it so difficult for me. I almost died to the Yama hall. Your bloody promise can go to hell. Venerable Poison's word was completely without fear now. After controlling Bi Dao's body for so long, his soul had grown much more accustomed to the body. He was very confident that he could suppress Bi Dao's resistance and thus gain full control over the body. Once I get out of here, the first thing I'll do is devour your soul and make up for the overconsumption of my soul, said Venerable Poison's word. The two of them communicated in their consciousness, so no outsider could hear them. At this moment, the divine hall swayed once more and shook violently. It almost caused Venerable Poison's word to lose his footing. The top portion of the divine hall had been completely destroyed, revealing the interior to the sunlight. He Yu did not seem to want to chop the divine hall in half with a single stroke, so he currently shaved away at it stroke by stroke. Rui Jin and Hong Lian did nothing, standing coldly by Jian Chen's side. They stared coldly at the ruined divine hall. At this moment, Rui Jin and Hong Lian's eyes suddenly narrowed. Just as they were about to move, Jian Chen turned in an instant and drew the Emperor Armament at the same time, stabbing out with unbelievable speed. With a boom, Jian Chen's Emperor Armament collided with a black dagger that had suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Afterward, the black-robed Yama appeared there, quickly retreating with the dagger in his hand. Bright red blood sprayed from his mouth, drifting through the air in the form of mist. Your hiding technique is extremely great, but tricks like that are useless against me, Jian Chen wielded the Emperor Armament as he sneered at the Yama. As soon as he said that, another 10 saint weapons appeared out of nowhere, silently stabbing at Jian Chen with a dark light. The 10 protector kings of Yama Hall had struck out at the same time. Jian Chen smiled scornfully. With a jolt of his arm, he stabbed out 10 times in an instant, and it became difficult to distinguish between what was real and false with the blurs. Every stroke cut through space, creating a small crack. They were all extremely accurate, striking the 10 saint weapons with the utmost precision. The saint weapons in the hands of the 10 protector kings suddenly shattered. They were destroyed by the Emperor Armament like a hammer taken to a nut, while a small, bloody slash appeared on their necks, before quickly expanding. Not only did Jian Chen's attacks shatter their saint weapons, it even cut through their necks. Slivers of brutal chaotic force entered their heads from their neck, wiping out their souls. The 10 protector kings were killed off in a single clash with Jian Chen. 9th heavenly layer saint rulers were as weak as an ant before a 7th heavenly layer saint king. They could not even resist. Boom! He Yu had lost interest in playing any more. With a deafening boom, he swung out as hard as he could and split the ruined divine hall in half. All the formations within collapsed before the attack. The divine hall had been completely destroyed. Losing their greatest protection, all the assassins hiding within flew out and fled in all directions. Ha 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 ha, I'm right. There really is a supreme expert who's come to seek trouble with the Yama Hall. Even the extremely tough Divine Hall has been destroyed. God is on my side, I'm finally free. Venerable Poison's Word laughed aloud as he charged out of the ruined Divine Hall. He did not stick around, joining the group of assassins as he fled into the distance as fast as he could. Senior Roy Jean, don't let them escape, or there'll be endless future troubles, Jianshin coldly said, before charging at the Yama who had just ambushed him. Don't worry, leave it to me, Roy Jean nonchalantly replied before forming a seal with his hands. He called out, secret technique of the Dragon Clan, Dragon's Domain. The surroundings suddenly lit up, and in that instant, the deep blue sky disappeared. The entire world became coated in a thick layer of golden light that expanded in all directions to several kilometers away with Roy Jean as its center. It formed an independent world, severing the connection to the outside and thus trapping all the assassins in there. Also, a mysterious power filled the golden world, firmly trapping them all where they could not move at all. There were quite a few saint rulers hidden among the assassins that fled. Trapped by the mysterious power, they immediately began to struggle as hard as they could, but even with their strength as saint rulers, they could not break free no matter how much they tried. Yama was also affected. Although it did not immobilize him, he seemed to have sunk into quicksand, where his movements became slow. Jianshin charged toward him threateningly with the Emperor Armament. With a black flicker, the weapon stabbed mercilessly toward the Yama with a destructive energy. A sliver of panic appeared in the Yama's eyes. Even at his peak, he was not Jian Chen's opponent, much less now that his body was restricted, dulling all his movements. It made it even more impossible for him to block Jian Chen's attacks. Jian Chen, are you really going to kill all of us? There are quite a few assassins of the Yama Hall outside. Aren't you afraid that they'll come hunting your flame mercenaries with their assassination skills? The Yama called out in alarm, wanting Jian Chen's determination to kill to waver. However, the Yama's threat did nothing. Jian Chen's Emperor Armament stabbed mercilessly into his chest, impaling him. Slivers of destructive, brutal chaotic force entered the Yama's body through the Emperor Armament, destroying all signs of life within him as they snaked toward his soul. The Yama's body was reduced to a bloody mess before the brutal chaotic force. The violent pain caused him to shriek, and the top of his head immediately shattered. His soul had fled from his body, escaping into the distance. A gleam of light flashed through Jian Chen's eyes. Controlling the surrounding space with his thoughts, he trapped the Yama's soul so that he could not flee. The Yama was a saint king, but he was extremely weak as a soul. He could not break free from the space frozen by Jian Chen with Jian Chen's comprehension at the 9th heavenly layer of Saint Ruler. The Yama's body fell out of the sky. With his sharp eyes and quick hands, Jian Chen immediately removed the space ring from the Yama's finger, before quickly checking it. A while later, Jian Chen's face lit up in joy. He pulled out a rock with a radius of half a meter from the space ring and involuntarily smiled without restraint. Ha ha ha, this trip was not a waste. I've finally found the Heaven's Soul Stone. Jian Chen felt extremely excited after obtaining the rock. He felt several hundred times more excited over this than wiping out the Yama Hall, since he needed to find fewer and fewer materials for the azulate swords now. The Yama's soul immediately understood that the rock was extremely important to Jian Chen when he saw how Jian Chen rejoiced after obtaining it. He immediately used a communication technique on Jian Chen. Captain Jian Chen, I can tell you where this rock comes from if you let me go. Jian Chen stared blankly as he pointed the glowing Emperor Armament at the Yama's soul. With dense killing intent in his eyes, he coldly said, Speak. Where does this rock come from? I will tell you if you agree to let me go. Otherwise, I won't say anything even if you kill me. The Yama replied with no room for disagreement. If you don't talk, I'll wipe out your soul right now and then learn this from another person. The killing intent in Jian Chen's eyes deepened while the terrifying energy from the Emperor Armament ripped through space. It seemed to be trying to suck the Yama's soul into the void. Sensing Jian Chen's killing intent, the Yama knew that Jian Chen was not joking. Making up his mind, he decided he might as well tell him and said, "This rock comes from the Wasteland Continent." The Wasteland Continent? Isn't that the place the 100 races inhabit? Jianshan whispered inside before swinging his hand. The Emperor Armament cleaved through the Yama's soul, wiping it out. The master of the Yama Hall disappeared from the world just like this with his strength at the fourth heavenly layer of Saint King. Jianshan rejoined Heiyu, Roy Jin, and the others with the Emperor Armament dripping with Saint King blood. He coldly stared at the assassins from the Yama Hall trapped in the dragon's domain. He then turned to the 5 saint rulers that had followed along. He said, "Kill all those here without mercy." "Yes, Captain," the saint rulers replied in unison. They were all extremely polite. They immediately charged toward the cloaked people, killing the assassins below Saint Ruler at leisure. Down below, Venerable Poison's word in Bi Dao's body was immobilized by the mysterious force within the dragon's domain. He immediately began to panic when he saw that the group of experts who had destroyed the Divine Hall had begun killing off the assassins. He called out, "Seniors, I am not a member of the Yama Hall. I was trapped in there until you came along and destroyed the Yama Hall. That was how I managed to break free. Please spare me, seniors." Venerable Poison's word meekly begged the people who had easily destroyed the Divine Hall for his life. Even with his former strength, he would not dare to offend them, much less now. Chapter 1093, Saving Bi Dao. Venerable Poison's word in Bi Dao's body mixed in with the group of assassins. Coupled with the fact that Bi Dao also wore long, black robes, he did not attract Jian Chen or the others' attention, until he spoke. Jian Chen and Roy Jin turned to Venerable Poison's word at the same time. Roy Jin's expression remained the same as before, but Jian Chen's eyes suddenly narrowed. He blankly stared at Venerable Poison's word as his expression changed very quickly. Even after so many years, Jian Chen was still able to recognize Bi Dao. Bi Dao was his mother's brother as well as his uncle by blood. He would never forget one of his few relatives. "Uncle!" Jian Chen cried out in surprise, immediately flying toward him. A sliver of amazement crossed over Roy Jin and Hong Lian's faces when they heard what Jian Chen said. They followed Jian Chen. Venerable Poison's word had obviously heard Jian Chen's cry as well, which stunned him. He became rather puzzled. "Xiangtian, it's actually Xiangtian. He's actually Xiangtian." Bi Dao's soul began to violently pulse, no longer as calm as it was before. "Xiangtian? What's Xiangtian? Brat, you recognize these people?" Venerable Poison's word jumped inside as he felt an ill omen. At this moment, Venerable Poison's word could feel the mysterious power immobilizing him disappear. He had regained his freedom, but he dared not flee. Any attempts of resistance and escape before an expert like this were futile. "He's my nephew." Venerable Poison's word, "I'd like to see how you kill me now." Bi Dao gnashed his teeth. He began to violently struggle in attempt to regain control over his body. "What? Your nephew?" Venerable Poison's word paled in fright. He worked hard to suppress Bi Dao's soul as his heart churned. "That's completely impossible, you brat. Your nephew cannot be older than you, and you're not even 100 years old. How can you have such a powerful nephew? Bi Dao, do you really think that I'm a kid you can trick?" Venerable Poison's word loudly voiced his thoughts, but he was not confident with what he was thinking at all. Jian Chen's call of uncle was already perfect evidence. Jian Chen had arrived by Venerable Poisonsword's side. He stared at Venerable Poison's word in shock, and just when he wanted to speak, he seemed to sense something. His expression changed as his eyes suddenly narrowed. He called out, "You're not my uncle." "Who are you?" Venerable Poisonsword's body shook as he became uneasy. However, it was already too late for him to make up for what he did, so he shamelessly said, "Nephew, I'm your uncle." "Don't you even recognize your uncle Bi Dao anymore?" Jian Chen sharply glared at him, before he pointed the Emperor Armament in his hand at Venerable Poison's word, radiating with an aura of destruction. He called out, "You still want to lie? Speak, who are you?" A powerful killing intent began to surge from Jian Chen. Venerable Poison Sword's heart shivered when he saw how Jian Chen did not fall for his trick. Rui Jin and Hong Lian arrived by Jian Chen's side. Their eyes flashed with gleams of light as they stared fixedly at Venerable Poison Sword. Jian Chen, this body has two souls. Someone is forcefully suppressing the soul of the original owner and, hence, controlling the body. Rui Jin explained. Jian Chen's expression changed, and he yelled at Venerable Poison's Word, "Leave my uncle's body at once, or I'll wipe you out." Venerable Poison Sword's expression changed as well. He said, "Your uncle is still alive. I've fused with your uncle's soul right now, so if you kill me, your uncle will die as well." Jian Chen's heart sank. If Bi Dao had suffered any physical damage, there were many ways to heal it regardless of how heavy it was. However, matters would become extremely annoying when they were related to the soul. He still hasn't gained full control over the body, so he's still not the owner of it. "I have ways to deal with him," Hong Lian suddenly informed them. She extended a finger toward Bi Dao's chest and stabbed into his heart, removing a droplet of dark red essence blood. At the same time, a ball of white flames appeared out of nowhere in Hong Lian's left hand. With a flick of her right hand, Bi Dao's essence blood shot into the white flames. The flames turned a red-white as soon as the essence blood entered, and with a wave of her left hand, the flames immediately surged toward Bi Dao's body. Hiss! Although it was just a small ball of flames, the flames spread very quickly once they touched Bi Dao. They encased him with a bright surging fire. Arg! Venerable Poison's Word immediately shrieked out in pain under the scorching of the fire. The flames produced no ordinary fire, they were extremely harmful to the soul, where even someone like Venerable Poison's Word could not resist. Hong Lian casually spoke when she saw Jian Chen's worried expression, "Don't worry, your uncle's essence blood has already been fused into the flames by me. It cannot harm your uncle at all and will only target objects that do not belong to your uncle. Using it to deal with that foreign soul in your uncle's body is extremely suitable for the situation." Jian Chen immediately stopped worrying when he heard her explanation. The flames rolled around Bi Dao's body. Although they did not give off any heat, there was no doubting their strength. The marks left behind by Venerable Poison's Word in Bi Dao's body were slowly burned away. Venerable Poison Sword's shrieks became more and more painful and more chilling. Enduring the scorching, he no longer had any extra strength to suppress Bi Dao's soul, allowing Bi Dao to regain control over his own body once again. Venerable Poison Sword's shrieks also became pulses of a soul in Bi Dao's head. "You old bastard, didn't you want to devour my soul before? Let's see who will be devouring whose soul now." Bi Dao was not a weakling. Without even talking to his nephew, he immediately began to devour Venerable Poison Sword's soul instead. Originally, it would have been impossible for Bi Dao to devour the soul of a Saint King at great perfection with his powers, but Venerable Poison Sword's soul had become extremely weak under the scorching of the flames. Since his soul was also in Bi Dao's head, Bi Dao was provided with this rare opportunity to devour the soul. However, Bi Dao's current strength was just too low. His appetite was nowhere great, so Bi Dao reached his limit as soon as he devoured a tiny portion. Venerable Poison's Word was still a Saint King at great perfection, even though his soul had become extremely weak. It was impossible for Bi Dao to devour it all in a short amount of time. The flames that burned Venerable Poison Sword's soul gradually subsided, and his soul stopped shrieking. All that was left was a gray pearl floating in Bi Dao's head. It was filled with the presence of the mysteries of the world and the dense power of a soul. That foreign soul that's taken over his body has been wiped out. As long as a small portion of the soul remains in your uncle's body, the comprehensions of the mysteries of the world in the foreign soul will remain because of the wonders of my fire and the environment, so if your uncle can absorb all of it, his strength will greatly increase. It is a great opportunity for him. Hong Lian nonchalantly spoke. Afterward, she raised her hand and a ball of flames rushed out of Bi Dao, returning to her hand before disappearing. Jian Chen obviously became extremely happy knowing that Bi Dao had obtained such a great opportunity to increase his strength. He arrived by Bi Dao's side and asked out of concern, "Uncle, are you all right? How do you feel?" Bi Dao slowly opened his eyes. They were filled with weakness and exhaustion. He had yet to convert the portion of the venerable poison sword's soul he had devoured into his own, while even more fragments of the soul and mysteries of the world remained in his head. The weakness in his soul was due to the suppression he suffered as well as the fact that his body's control was forcefully seized from him. Bi Dao looked at Jian Chen with mixed emotions as gladness filled his face. After so many years, his nephew was becoming more and more outstanding. Xiangtian, you're fine now. The Yama Hall was the mysterious people who wiped out our Bi family long ago. Only you can complete the revenge now, Bi Dao said. Killing intent surged in Jian Chen's eyes when he heard that. He grit his teeth. I never thought that the mysterious people who wiped out the Bi family back then was the Yama Hall. I can finally avenge the Bi family now. Uncle, go rest first. Leave everything to me, Jian Chen said to Bi Dao. He gazed around and saw that a large portion of the 1,000 or so assassins of Yama Hall had been slaughtered by the 5 saint rulers. Only a dozen or so saint ruler assassins remained. Although there was the punishment of celestial decay if saint rulers or above killed those below saint ruler, that was only applicable to massacres, targeting those who kill millions of people. Just killing 1,000 people would not lead to celestial decay. Violent booms constantly vibrated around. The battle in the distance became even more intense. The 5 saint rulers now worked together as they encircled the saint ruler assassins, killing them one by one. The saint ruler assassins were all limited in their movements. Although they could counterattack, it was very difficult for them to move, so even if they were more powerful, they could not resist the joint attacks of the 5 saint rulers. In the blink of an eye, 2 of the weaker saint ruler assassins were killed off by the 5 saint rulers. On the other hand, the slaughter of those above saint ruler would not increase the sins of a person and lead to celestial decay, no matter how horrifying the slaughter was. Jian Chen coldly stared at the remaining saint ruler assassins. With his emperor armament, he used the illusionary flash, charging toward them from where he was in the form of a blur. Every time he passed by one of them, the emperor armament would turn into a black streak of light and a head would be launched into the air. Even saint rulers at the 9th heavenly layer were not Jian Chen's opponent. Very soon, all of them died to Jian Chen's hands. Their souls were all wiped out as blood dyed the sky, falling like rain. Jian Chen's white robes fluttered as his long hair swept about. He stood in the air with his emperor armament, which dripped with blood, seeming just like a god of slaughter. He glared at the destroyed divine hall and coldly called out, "How much longer are you going to hide, you, the real experts of the Yama Hall? Are you still not going to come out?" He had learned from Changyang Zhu Yunshao that there was not a lot of saint kings in the Yama Hall, but there was more than one. Suddenly, an extremely thin spike appeared behind Jian Chen. It stabbed at the back of Jian Chen's head with lightning speed and utter silence, wanting to wipe out his soul in a single stroke. Chapter 1094, Spectral Elder. Suddenly, an extremely thin spike appeared behind Jian Chen. It stabbed at the back of Jian Chen's head with lightning speed and utter silence, wanting to wipe out his soul in a single stroke. The spike had appeared suddenly, without any prior signs. Even as it shot out, it was completely silent, not radiating with any energy. It was extremely fast, enough to rival Jian Chen's sword. Jian Chen's eyes suddenly narrowed. Although he failed to notice the killing strike from behind him, he could sense everything since he had expanded his presence. Using the illusory flash, he left a blur where he was standing before and appeared 3 meters away. The Emperor armament in his hand cut through space as it stabbed at the spike. The black spike passed through Jian Chen's afterimage before returning with unbelievable speed. It collided with the Emperor armament. With a boom, the Emperor armament struck the tip of the spike. A terrifying energy erupted, wreaking havoc in the surroundings, causing the area to violently tremble. Jian Chen took a few steps back from the great force. A silver-clothed figure could vaguely be seen that quickly retreated. The figure seemed to be fused with the surroundings, becoming extremely faint to the point where it was barely visible. The next moment, the figure suddenly vanished, disappearing completely. Jian Chen finally became rather stern. He knew he had come across a true expert now. To be able to match his Emperor armament, not only did his opponent reach the 7th heavenly layer of Saint King, his opponent also possessed an extremely profound concealing technique. He could fuse with the surroundings, and even Jian Chen's presence was not enough to sense where he was. What a great concealing technique! Jian Chen could not help but praise. Many people knew techniques where they could hide themselves from others. Those were only small tricks, but these small tricks could not escape the senses of Jian Chen's presence. However, the assassin's concealing technique was able to hide from Jian Chen's presence in such a way that Jian Chen could not find him. "You must be the previous Yama of the Yama Hall," Jian Chen emotionlessly said. He fully expanded his presence and paid attention to everything, keeping his guard against the life-threatening attack that the hidden assassin could deal at any moment. "I am the Spectral Elder of the Yama Hall, not the former Yama. Captain Jian Chen, since you want to devastate the Yama Hall, I can only lay my hands on you," an old voice rang out from the empty space, making it impossible to pinpoint where the speaker was. Jian Chen slightly frowned. His presence had already enveloped the entire dragon's domain, but he failed to find where the person was hiding. "Jian Chen, this person's concealing technique has already reached a state of absolute mastery while my grasp over the dragon's domain has yet to reach perfection. It is unable to limit his movements, and I can't find where he's hiding," Rui Jin said to Jian Chen through a communication technique. Jian Chen chuckled at the sky. "Finally an opponent equal to me. Spectral Elder, so what if your concealing technique has reached a level of perfection? You still can't make sneak attacks on me." Senior Rui Jin, Senior He Yu, and Senior Hong Lian, "Leave this person to me." "Humph, you're too confident, Jian Chen. You'll die for sure today. Unless I am facing is a 9th heavenly layer Saint King, no one can survive my assassination skills." The Spectral Elder's voice rang out once more, but it was still impossible to find where he was. Suddenly, the black spike appeared behind Jian Chen again. It shot toward Jian Chen silently, and by following the trajectory of the spike, an extremely vague figure could be seen. It seemed like a cloud of smoke. A sharp gleam of light flickered through Jian Chen's eyes. He wanted to stab the Emperor Armament back and engage in a battle with the Spectral Elder, but the Spectral Elder did not bother to tangle with him too much. He hid in the empty space once more where Jian Chen lost track of him. With a cold face, Jian Chen constantly stabbed at the empty space before him. He created a dense net of blurs that enveloped the space in front of him as he tried to force the Spectral Elder out of hiding. However, the black spike appeared once more at this moment on Jian Chen's left side. The spike fused with the surrounding space, arriving near Jian Chen in an instant. It easily pierced through Jian Chen's body, puncturing his left shoulder. It traveled all the way to his left shoulder bone. Jian Chen roared as the chaotic force within him surged. All of it gathered in his left shoulder, and by enduring the heart-stabbing pain, he used the bone to stop the spike from advancing as he swiftly attacked the Spectral Elder with the Emperor Armament, which was filled with an aura of destruction. The Spectral Elder coldly snorted as Saint Force surged out of the spike, shattering Jian Chen's left shoulder bone. He removed the spike and then quickly retreated, wanting to hide in empty space again. Unfortunately, Jian Chen did not give him that chance. The instant the Spectral Elder hid in empty space again, the Emperor Armament passed under his arm, leaving behind a wound. A sliver of chaotic force entered the wound from the Emperor Armament, quickly destroying the Spectral Elder's flesh and blood. Although he was powerful, his body was nowhere near as tough as Jian Chen's body. He was unable to withstand the chaotic force as the intense pain from the chaotic force caused him to involuntarily grunt. Afterward, his body completely disappeared in empty space without leaving behind a single drop of blood. Jian Chen snickered. He had a wondrous connection with chaotic force. Even though the Spectral Elder had hidden in empty space, Jian Chen could find where he was through the sliver of chaotic force that had entered his body. "Spectral Elder, I'd like to see where you run off to now." Jian Chen took a single step and traversed thousands of meters. The Emperor Armament stabbed at empty air. Ding! The Spectral Elder blocked Jian Chen's Emperor Armament with the Saint weapon in his hand. He could no longer remain hidden in space, finally appearing before Jian Chen. He was a bald, old man, skinny and small. He wore a silver robe made out of some unknown material, which was tightly wrapped around him. The area below his arm had already become red with blood. The residual chaotic force was forcefully being suppressed by the old man's powerful saint force, preventing it from expanding. How is this possible? How did you find where I was? The spectral elder stared at Jian Chen in shock. Your hiding techniques are useless before me. Let's have a solid battle with our own strengths, sneered Jian Chen. He attacked the spectral elder once more with the Emperor Armament. The spectral elder did not buy it. With a flash, he disappeared into empty space once again, but he was immediately discovered by Jian Chen, forcing him out of hiding. My void movement technique may be ineffective against you, but I can still kill you. The spectral elder no longer hid in empty space. A vast surging energy leaked from him as the black spike in his hand began to glow with dark light. He began engaging in an intense battle with Jian Chen. Every assassin of the Yama Hall rarely engaged in open battles. They were more used to assassinations, often using the easiest method to catch the opponent off guard and deal a fatal blow. Now that the spectral elder's assassination techniques were useless against Jian Chen, he could only fight him head-on. The spectral elder was an assassin, but he was still a seventh heavenly layer Saint King. He had gone through countless battles on the edge of life and death, so he was extremely powerful even without his assassination techniques. He possessed extremely rich experience in combat. Violent booms filled the surroundings. The Emperor Armament in Jian Chen's hand had already turned into a vicious black dragon, moving so fast that space shattered. His Emperor Armament stabbed out continuously in the form of blurs, moving extremely quickly. Each strike was sharp and fast and filled with viciousness, only aiming to harm the spectral elder. The spike in the spectral elder's hand stabbed out quickly as a terrifying energy wrapped around it. It was no slower than Jian Chen's attack speed, but the only difference was that every attack from Jian Chen was extremely fluid, flowing from one to another like water. It seemed to possess some other profoundness at the same time. On the other hand, the spectral elder focused more on power. Each strike possessed an earth-shaking might, wanting to suppress Jian Chen with supreme strength. It was an intense clash, a battle between power, a collision of strength. More importantly, it was a fierce fight of life and death. Jian Chen matched the spectral elder with his Emperor Armament, fighting to the point where the surroundings fell into chaos. Even Rui Jin's dragon's domain violently trembled. The two of them clashed over 1,000 times very soon. They both were dyed with blood and wounds littered their bodies. No one gained an advantage. Ancient secret technique, devouring the world. The spectral elder suddenly bellowed out. He exhaled after opening his mouth. Immediately, a huge ghost's face appeared, opening its pitch-black mouth toward Jian Chen before sucking violently. Faced with the sudden suction, Jian Chen immediately flew toward the ghost's mouth. Jian Chen saw the glimmering of stars within the pitch-black mouth, the boundless cosmos. This was an extremely powerful ancient secret technique. Jian Chen knew that once he was sucked into it, he would probably be released in that region of outer space, without any hopes of returning. Jian Chen drew closer and closer to the mouth. The suction was extremely powerful and had already locked onto him. He could not escape. Jian Chen roared at the sky as chaotic force wildly ran through his body like wild horses. The Emperor Armament glowed with a blinding, dark light as a presence of destruction filled the domain. He then sliced as hard as he could at the ghost face, causing it to violently tremble. Jian Chen struck out over 10 times in that short instance. Each attack utilized all he had, causing the ghost face to continuously tremble. In the end, it ripped apart into several pieces. Spurt. With the ancient secret technique shattered, the spectral elder also suffered a backlash. He vomited a mouthful of blood and paled. The injury this time was bad, much more severe than all the wounds he had received earlier. Chapter 1095. The former Yama Jian Chen reacted extremely quickly. After breaking through the ancient secret technique, he immediately attacked the spectral elder. He sent a huge sword chi, 10 meters long, toward the Spectral Elder. The Spectral Elder was no longer as powerful as before. After blocking the attack, he moved back several dozen meters uncontrollably. Before he had regained his footing, Jian Chen had already appeared in front of him through the illusory flash. The Emperor Armament fused with the surrounding space and radiated with a terrifying energy, stabbing toward the Spectral Elder's head. In that crucial moment, the space around Jian Chen suddenly froze. Jian Chen's motion paused, and his strike headed toward the Spectral Elder's head slowed. Jian Chen roared out. His long hair and clothes danced about wildly as surging chaotic force shook up his insides. He broke through the frozen space, but the obstruction still affected him. Not only did he lose a perfect opportunity to kill the Spectral Elder, the Spectral Elder had stabbed out and punctured his chest. Jian Chen, I'll take your life with us if you want to wipe out the Yama Hall. At the same time, Jian Chen heard a voice. A black-robed, young man, who seemed in his 20s, silently appeared beside the Spectral Elder. He held the exact same spike as the Spectral Elder, stabbing at Jian Chen's forehead with lightning speed. That's a 9th heavenly layer Saint King. Rui Jin's expression changed as he watched on from afar. He immediately disappeared from where he was, swiftly rushing over. Rui Jin was very fast, but the young man was even faster. The black spike arrived before Jian Chen's forehead in an instant. Rui Jin could not save Jian Chen even with his speed. Jian Chen could not dodge at all. The attack had locked onto his presence, so he felt like he could not avoid it no matter what he tried. All he could do was take it forcefully. The moment before death, Jian Chen became extraordinarily calm. A golden streak of light flashed from his forehead during a crucial moment and a fist-sized golden tower immediately flew out. It collided with the black spike in the form of a golden streak of light. With a great boom, the life-threatening attack that came from the young man was successfully blocked by the Saint artifact. A sliver of pity appeared in the young man's eyes. He glanced in Rui Jin's direction, and he immediately became stern. He swung a palm full of dense energy toward Jian Chen's chest before immediately disappearing into empty space. He had vanished. Jian Chen vomited a mouthful of blood as he was blown away like a broken kite. His chest had completely caved in, his ribs had all shattered, and his organs had all ruptured. His injuries were severe. Killing intent flashed through the Spectral Elder's eyes when he saw how heavily injured Jian Chen had become. He immediately pursued Jian Chen, wanting to end his life. Rui Jin had already arrived where the young man was before. With a sunken face, glaring eyes, and a glimmering, golden body, a vast pressure filled with anger appeared in the surroundings. He had clearly been angered. Magical beast, I know I'm not your opponent, so farewell today. The young man's cold voice rang out from empty space. Arg! On the other side, Jian Chen furiously roared. Chaotic force rampaged within him, quickly healing his injuries. Although it was impossible for him to make a full recovery in such a short amount of time, he suppressed his injuries as fast as he could. Spectral Elder, I can still claim your life even if I'm heavily injured, Jian Chen yelled out. His battle intent increased, and not only did his might fail to decrease, it had become even greater than before. This was the strongest aspect of the chaotic body. With a powerful body and vitality, Jian Chen possessed battle prowess far greater than ordinary people. Unless he came across people that were far stronger than him, he could take on people at the same level as him even if he was heavily injured. The bloodied Jian Chen began fighting the Spectral Elder once more. He was even more wild and even more bold than before. He cast away everything and fought the Spectral Elder in a way that traded blow for blow. The Saint artifact floated above his head, ready to block a sneak attack from the hiding 9th heavenly layer Saint King at any moment. By himself, Jian Chen possessed the might of a 3rd heavenly layer Saint King. He only possessed strength at the 7th heavenly layer because of the Emperor Armament, so the 7th heavenly layer was his current limit. It just happened to be equal to the Spectral Elder's strength, so as the two ferociously fought, their wounds constantly increased. The residual chaotic force in the Spectral Elder's body had already been forced out by his supreme strength, so it could no longer deal any more damage to the Spectral Elder. With a cold expression, Roy Jean growled, "My dragon's domain is a smaller realm, independent from the outside world. Unless you are at great perfection as well, you cannot escape. If I don't come out of hiding, you can't find me either. I can perform sneak attacks on you all the time," said the young man. "Your status in the Yama Hall must be extraordinary with your strength. If I've guessed correctly, you should be the master of the Yama Hall that was heavily injured by the sect master of the Bloodsword sect 1,000 years ago," replied Roy Jean. He had some understanding in regards to the Yama Hall's current strength from what Jian Chen had told him before. "Correct, I am the previous Yama. Now that my wounds have completely healed, I am roughly just as strong as you. I may not be your opponent, but if I pester you, I will irritate you." "Magical beast, do you think there's a need for us to brawl it out?" said the former Yama. He feared Roy Jean, so he wanted to stop fighting with him. Scorn filled Roy Jin's eyes. He said, "The void movement technique of your Yama Hall truly is admirable, to be able to hide from the senses of my dragon's domain. It really is powerful, but finding you is as easy as a flip of my hand." With that, Roy Jean produced a loud dragon's roar at the sky. It was earth-shaking, possessing might that destroyed the surroundings. The terrifying sound wave caused the surrounding space to toss like waves. The roar contained a sliver of the dragon clan's pressure. Since the pressure originated from a golden divine dragon, a king of the dragon clan, it was much stronger than the pressure of ordinary dragons. It could harm the souls of people. The 5 saint rulers of the flame mercenaries fell unconscious, falling out of the sky. They had been knocked out by Roy Jin's earth-shaking roar. Jian Chen and the Spectral Elder were also affected during their ferocious fight. Both of them felt a heart-stabbing pain in their souls, causing them to become sluggish and stop fighting temporarily. However, Jian Chen's soul was far more powerful than his current strength, so he recovered before the Spectral Elder. He immediately stabbed the area between the Spectral Elder's eyebrows with the Emperor Armament, wiping out the Spectral Elder's soul and killing him off. Roy Jin's roar caused the surrounding space to violently tremble. The space tossed and turned like the surface of the ocean where waves rose one after another, forcing the former Yama out of hiding. He appeared 1,000 meters away. "Former Yama, even if you're at great perfection, you don't have the capability to irritate me. Killing you is easy. Unless you are a Saint Emperor, you have no right to discuss anything with me." Roy Jean coldly spoke. The Dragon Clan was a powerful and prideful clan, not to mention Roy Jean, who was a king of the clan. Roy Jean appeared silently next to the former Yama. Without using any weapons, he extended his hands in the direction of the former Yama's head. The former Yama became stern. Invisible world force immediately condensed, all of it gathering on the black spike in his hand. It then shot toward Roy Jin's hands in a flash. Roy Jin's expression remained the same. His hands were covered by a layer of golden scales in an instant, catching the black spike. A vicious light flickered through the former Yama's eyes. Terrifying energy loudly erupted from the black spike in attempt to blow one of Roy Jin's hands off. However, it did nothing. "You overestimate yourself if you want to take me on." Roy Jin's hand tightly grasped the former Yama's weapon. The densely packed scales on his hand were extremely tough. Even an attack from a 9th heavenly layer Saint King would struggle to harm him. At this moment, Roy Jean slowly raised his left hand as it rapidly changed, turning into a golden dragon's claw in the blink of an eye. The 5 long claws flickered with a pressing cold light as they stabbed into the former Yama's chest with lightning speed. The sharp claws impaled the former Yama, and the brutal force created a huge hole in the former Yama's chest. Blood sprayed from the former Yama's mouth. He was heavily injured, and he abandoned his weapon without a second thought. Pulling back, his figure quickly began to dull. He wanted to hide in empty space. Roy Jean took several steps through the air where each step could shatter space. They produced terrifying ripples in space, causing it to become extremely unstable. The instability prevented the former Yama from hiding. The dragon's claw flickered with a dull, golden light as inscriptions flashed. The claw came down from above, traveling toward the former Yama's head. In that instance, time seemed to stop. Even the air stopped, freezing everything. The space below Roy Jin's claws seemed to turn into an independent domain, a domain without time. The former Yama's movements halted. Roy Jin's giant claw flickered with golden inscriptions. It fell from above with incomparable force, and the moment that it came in contact with the former Yama's head, his head loudly exploded. His soul had been wiped out before it could even break out of his body. The claw continued down without any reduction in speed. It fell from above, heading down, continuing into the former Yama's body. With just a few booms, the former Yama's body was squashed into pieces. He died without a full corpse. The former Yama was a 9th heavenly layer Saint King. He was an expert who stood at the very apex of the continent, yet someone so strong as him could not even withstand a blow from Roy Jin. Jianchen felt deeply shocked when he witnessed just how easily Roy Jin had slain a 9th heavenly layer Saint King. He could not remain calm. This was a battle where Roy Jin purely used his own strength against the former Yama without any use of his origin weapon. A 9th heavenly layer Saint King could not even fight back before Roy Jin. Roy Jin sure is worthy of being a dragon king. His strength is too terrifying. Our differences are just too great. It would have been impossible for me to kill that former Yama so easily if it were me, Heiyu sighed in amazement. He too felt shocked by Roy Jin's terrifying strength. Chapter 1096, Fragments of a Saint Tier battle skill. Killing a 9th heavenly layer Saint King was like nothing to Roy Jin. He did not even glance at the squashed former Yama a second time. Instead, he turned around to look at the bloodied Jianchen and asked, "Jianchen, are you fine?" Jianchen sucked in a deep breath and slowly calmed himself down. Roy Jin's supreme strength that slaughtered a 9th heavenly layer Saint King deeply shocked Jianchen. The 9th heavenly layer stood at the very apex of Saint King. It still possessed some difference from great perfection, but this difference was tiny. Yet, the difference had become so extreme when it involved Roy Jin, becoming as wide as a chasm. A 9th heavenly layer Saint King could not resist Roy Jin. They could not even injure him. Jianchen shook his head. "I thank Senior Roy Jin for your concern. I still can support myself." Jianchen's voice was a little weak. His injuries from the battle against the Spectral Elder did not affect him much. On the other hand, the palm strike from the former Yama had heavily wounded him. If it were not for his chaotic body, he would have collapsed long ago. Bi Dao flew over to Jianchen's side. Hong Lian's pearl had blocked off Roy Jin's earth-shaking roar for Bi Dao. After all, the pearl could defend against all soul attacks, which was why he remained unaffected. "Xiangtian, now that the Yama Hall has been devastated, the revenge of our Bi family is complete as well. This is all because of you. You're very heavily injured right now, so you should go recover quickly, just in case it leaves behind any future problems." Concern filled Bi Dao's voice. Although Jianchen's strength left him deeply astounded, right now was obviously not the time for them to catch up. Jianchen nodded. Then, he ordered the 5 saint rulers who had just woken up to clean up the battlefield. Afterward, he entered the artifact space, while Roy Jin and the other 2 watched over the saint artifact. Covered in blood, Jianchen sat in the center of a room within a well-adorned hall of the palace. He completely bathed in extremely dense origin energy of radiant saint force, which allowed his wounds to quickly recover. The white-robed artifact spirit stood silently by Jianchen's side. He controlled the radiant saint force origin energy, as it continuously entered Jianchen's body. Coupled with the recovery of his chaotic body, Jianchen's severe wounds started to vanish at an unbelievable rate. Jianchen did not use his own radiant saint force origin energy. When he initially broke through to Class 7, he did not manage to fuse a lot of the origin energy into his soul, so this origin energy was a consumable. Every strand would disappear after he used it. It would be even more difficult to replenish than chaotic force. He needed his current radiant saint force origin energy to form a foundation so that he could reach Class 8 in the future. On the Tianyuan continent, the abilities of every single radiant saint master was inborn. It would be decided as soon as they were conceived, so it was impossible to become a Radiant Saint Master after birth. As a result, it was much easier for Radiant Saint Masters to undergo breakthroughs. All a Class 6 Radiant Saint Master needed was to fuse some of the Radiant Saint Force Origin energy into his soul to reach Class 7. Breaking through to Class 8 only needed accumulation. One needed to use vast amounts of Radiant Saint Force Origin energy to increase the quality of their soul. That was the secret to reaching Class 8. However, there had only ever been one Class 8 Radiant Saint Master in the ancient times. The world lacked Radiant Saint Force Origin energy, so it did not offer the conditions required for the birth of Class 8 Radiant Saint Masters. However, Jian Shen possessed the Saint artifact that specially refined Radiant Saint Force Origin energy. He possessed an overwhelming advantage, so reaching Class 8 was only a matter of time for him. Jian Shen fully recovered after 4 hours. He left the room after he changed into a set of clean clothes. Then, he asked the artifact spirit about the elite members of the flame mercenaries he had sent into the artifact space. Master, they have constantly fought magical beasts, continuously increasing their experience in battle and their mastery over heaven-tier battle skills. A small portion of them have broken through to Heaven Saint Master now, while the rest are all Earth Saint Masters, reported the artifact spirit. Jian Shen nodded in satisfaction. They really are improving quite quickly. I haven't poured so many heavenly resources into them for nothing. Once they reach the peak of Heaven Saint Master, I'll send them to Mercenary City and get Shaoling to assist them in breaking through to Saint Ruler. Artifact Spirit, remember that none of them are allowed to die in here. This one understands. But Master, even though the heavenly resources have improved their constitutions, merely a good constitution will not allow one to reach Saint Ruler. They need to have high levels of comprehension, and I've observed every single of them. I've discovered that almost all of them have no hope of reaching Saint Ruler. Their limit is Heaven Saint Master, said the artifact spirit. You don't need to worry about this. There is a wondrous item in the sea realm called the divine water of the world. It possesses marvelous effects on the soul. Once consumed, it can make up for this aspect that they lack, Jian Shen said confidently. He was extremely confident in regards to everything. This group of people had followed him the earliest out of everyone. They were also the same people who joined the Flame Mercenaries the earliest, so he poured everything he had into raising them. He wanted to develop them into the core power of the Flame Mercenaries. Jian Shen could not help but grow excited when he thought about the fact that the Flame Mercenaries would have several dozen Saint Rulers as their core power in the future. Although the current Flame Mercenaries possessed enough people who could stand at the very top, it was far too lacking in terms of experts that belonged to the center, not too weak or strong. They were nowhere near ancient clans. However, this aspect could not be made up for in a short amount of time, and it needed to be accumulated over time. Boom! At this moment, a rumble shook up another hall nearby. A pressure that originated from the world permeated the surroundings. It was extremely powerful and heavy, as if a supreme lord had descended, which caused everything to submit to its rule. It could deeply shock anyone. Jian Shen stood outside his own hall, as he stared deeply at the hall where the sound came from. He remained silent. Master, your friend is trying to alter the Saint Tier battle skill. He has tried things like this many times in the past few years, almost demolishing the hall several times. I ended up toughening his hall specially, the artifact spirit said as some helplessness filled his face. The Octaterra Emperor left behind this Saint Tier battle skill. Its might is far greater than battle skills that Saint Kings can create, so it won't be easy if Nubis wants to alter a Saint Tier battle skill for members of the sea race so that it suits magical beasts. However, he seems to have achieved some success now. I just wonder how much time he needs before he completes it truly, murmured Jian Shen. Reminiscence filled his eyes. Nubis had already gone into seclusion for many years now, so he somewhat missed the times where they had fought and struggled for their lives together. Jian Shen left the artifact space. When he appeared in the outside world again, Rui Jin's dragon's domain had already vanished. The surroundings had returned to their previous state, while the great banner of the Flame Mercenaries was firmly planted on the highest point of the ruined Divine Hall. It danced and moved about in the wind, signaling the victory of the Flame Mercenaries. The 5 saint rulers arrived before Jian Chen and passed over a space ring. They said, the after-battle cleanup is complete. All the space rings and treasures within the Divine Hall have been stored in there. As soon as Jian Chen accepted the space ring, Rui Jin flew out from the ruins. He held 2 square, stone tablets that were a meter wide and long, as he arrived before Jian Chen. He said, Jian Chen, look what this is. He directly flung the 2 pieces of stone toward Jian Chen as he smiled. Jian Chen caught the 2 tablets with a single hand and his hand immediately sunk. The 2 tablets that were not very big were extraordinarily heavy, actually more heavy than gold. There were clear images distinctly carved into them, but it was incomplete. Jian Chen raised the 2 tablets and carefully examined the images. Afterward, a gleam of light flashed through his eyes, and he immediately pulled out a similar stone tablet from his space ring. The 3 stone pieces were the same in both size and color, just that the carvings differed. These are fragments of a Saint-tier battle skill. Jian Chen exclaimed in surprise. The Saint-tier battle skill fragment in his possession was obtained when several kingdoms formed a coalition and attacked the Jessen kingdom. He had found it in the treasury of the Qiangan kingdom. Correct, these are fragments of a Saint-tier battle skill. It seems like it has been split into 6 pieces, He Yu said indifferently. A Saint-tier battle skill may mean nothing to Jian Chen, but it was much, much more than that to the flame mercenaries. Jian Chen stowed the 3 fragments away before thanking He Yu. Then, he left with everyone else. Jian Chen had already sent Bi Dao into the artifact space so that he could properly recuperate. He Yu personally ripped open a space gate to the Changyang clan in Lore City. After that, they left with Jian Chen. The surroundings fell into a deathly silence once more with their departure. Only a large pile of corpses and a devastated divine hall stood there. A light breeze traveled through the place and blew the bloody smell everywhere. Only a bunch of ruins and corpses remained of the Yama Hall, which was one of the 3 great assassination organizations that had stood on the Tianyuan continent for over 100,000 years. Jian Chen let the 5 saint rulers return to Flame City by themselves after they returned to the Changyang clan. Afterward, he paid a visit to Bai Yintian's room all by himself. All he found was his mother sitting by her bed, as she sewed a piece of clothing lined with golden silk. Mother! Jian Chen called out. Although she was already more than 50 years old, Bai Yintian still had the appearance of a lady in her 20s. Time left no mark on her face, but she did seem much more mature and much more dignified. Chapter 1097, Visiting Dragon Island once more, 1. Bai Yintian's face immediately lit up with joy when she saw Jian Chen stride through the doorway. Deep love filled her eyes as her hands stopped working. She stood up with the piece of clothing still in her hands and smiled, Xianger, perfect. Try on this piece of clothing to see if it fits. I've sewn it according to your body shape after buying some supreme cloth from outside. Jian Chen's heart warmed up from his mother's love. Outside, he was a cold expert who shook the continent and someone that various forces feared, but at home, he was an extremely obedient and filial child. Mother, let's talk about this later. I have something much more important, Jian Chen said. Afterward, a streak of golden light shot from the spot between his eyebrows and turned into a fist-sized golden tower. With a flash of golden light, the black-robed Bi Dao suddenly appeared in the room. Brother! Bai Yintian immediately cried out when she saw Bi Dao. Great surprise filled her face. Bi Dao also noticed Bai Yintian, who stood beside him. Immediately, he became stunned as he blankly stared at her. Disbelief flooded his face. Sister, weren't you? How are you still alive? Bai Dao's face was filled with surprise. To him, his sister had been murdered several years ago. She should have become a pile of dirt by now. After death had separated these siblings for so many years, they had a lot to say once they were together again. Bai Yintian revealed the secrets of her revival, which immediately stunned Bi Dao. An even greater sense of happiness filled his gaze as he looked at Jian Chen. He sighed inside. His nephew kept shocking him more and more. Not only had he become a supreme expert, but he had also become a Class 7 Radiant Saint Master at the same time. Bi Dao also spoke about his encounters outside over the past few years. Ever since Bai Yuntian had died, he had wandered the Tian Yuan continent alone, personally finding ways to increase his strength. In the end, he discovered a several thousand-year-old heavenly resource that a Class 6 magical beast guarded. He obtained it after he had chased away the magical beast with a Heaven-tier battle skill. He used it to reach Heaven's Saint Master. Afterward, he continued to wander the Tian Yuan continent. He entered the depths of the soul-claiming mountains within the Karl Empire and was poisoned. He also faced the pursuit of a few powerful poisonous Class 6 magical beasts. He hid in Venerable Poison Sword's old dwelling after he fled. Venerable Poison Sword's soul saved him. In the end, the two of them had a discussion and reached an agreement. Venerable Poison's Word would help him complete his revenge, and he would offer his body to Venerable Poison's Word in return. However, he had never thought that the events he would experience would be so dramatic. Not only was Venerable Poison's Word wiped out, a portion of his soul and comprehensions of the mysteries of the world remained in Bi Dao's head, benefiting him greatly. Bi Dao spoke indifferently, but Bai Yuntian could still feel the amount of pain Bi Dao had endured during those years. Tears continuously rolled down her face as she sobbed, "Brother, it has really been tough for you over the past few years. You've done too much for our Bai family." "No, I haven't done much. The one who's done a lot is Shangtian. He has devastated the Yama hall that wiped out our family back then, so our revenge is finally complete," Bi Dao sternly explained. He understood extremely well that he would probably be dead now if it were not for his nephew. Afterward, Bai Yuntian told Bi Dao that their ancestor, Bai Hai, was completely fine, which Bi Dao rejoiced over. During that night, Jian Shen returned to his room with the space ring from the 5 saint rulers. He spent 4 hours checking through the 1,000+ space rings inside. He found countless purple coins and monster cores of various classes. There were several dozen Class 7 monster cores and even 5 Class 8 ones. Class 8 monster cores could only be obtained after the death of a magical beast at the level of Saint King. Jian Shen had found them in the space rings of the Spectral Elder and the former Yama. Only experts at their levels could obtain such high-class monster cores. Jian Shen had even found numerous Heaven's Soul Stones in the space rings of other assassins. Clearly, the rock was not valuable to them. Every high-level assassin of the Yama Hall possessed a small piece that had been carved into a unique shape as a token of identification. Jian Shen put away all the Heaven's Soul Stone and the Class 7 and 8 monster cores. He did not even glance at the purple coins a second time. He planned to give them all to Bai Lian the next time he visited Flame City. And to think that back then, I would work as hard as I could, kill without regard for myself, and dance on the edge of life and death just for those purple coins and low-class monster cores. Now, these items are basically trash to me. Jian Shen smiled brilliantly as he stared at all the space rings on the floor. He immediately laughed at himself while he involuntarily thought back to the days when he would constantly fight to live. A while later, Jian Shen returned to his senses. He stored all the space rings from the Yama Hall into a single space ring before he left the room. He stared at the pitch-black sky as he suddenly rose from the ground. He shot off into outer space with a wild gust of wind and disappeared in the blink of an eye. A huge, silver-white divine hall floated above the Tian Yuan continent in outer space. It just happened to be above the Jessen Kingdom. Bright and clear moonlight flowed around the divine hall. The hall continuously absorbed moonlight force. Jian Shen charged into outer space like a comet. He landed steadily outside the main entrance of the divine hall. Currently, the main entrance was tightly closed. Jian Shen seemed rather insignificant compared to the majestic entrance with his stature that had not even reached 2 meters. At this moment, a rumble rang out. The closed door slowly opened and revealed a beauty in a white dress. She held a scepter and stood silently in the doorway. She was Yu Yu. Yu Yu sweetly smiled when she saw Jian Shen outside the doorway. She hugged one of Jian Shen's arms intimately and softly said, "Jian Shen, my master said you had come, but I didn't believe her at all." I didn't think you'd actually come. Have you come to see me? Jian Chen gently smiled. He said as he stared at Yu Yu's joyful face, I've come specifically to see you. Cultivating is extremely boring, especially when you have to cultivate alone in outer space, so I was wondering if you could endure the loneliness. Yu Yu smiled even more sweetly. She looked at Jian Chen with affection. It is boring and lonely, but as long as I work hard, I won't drag you down once I become powerful. At that time, I can roam the world with you. Jian Chen became stunned. He suddenly felt distressed for some reason, and the heavenly enchantress and Huang Wan quickly flashed through his head. He owed Yu Yu far too much. I promise you that once I deal with all my matters, I'll hold a grand marriage with you in the Jessen kingdom, Jian Chen swore to Yu Yu. This was something that had originated from the bottom of his heart. All right. Yu Yu nodded her head slightly as she happily smiled. Afterward, she sat down on the door sill and hung onto Jian Chen's arm, staring at the huge moon in a daze. Jian Chen and Yu Yu sat together on the steep door sill in cold and silent space, gazing at the stars in the distance. That night, the two of them did not say much. It was pure silence while they carefully cherished this lovely moment. The next day, Jian Chen unwillingly bid farewell to Yu Yu. Then, he returned to the Changyang clan. He got He Yu to construct a space gate to Flame City, so that he could drop off the huge fortune he had obtained from the Yama Hall. After that, he described the materials needed for the azulate swords in detail to Bai Lian, so that she could use the entire organization's power to search the continent. Once the items were found, he ordered her to purchase them no matter the price. After handing over the matters he needed to Bai Lian, Jian Chen and He Yu visited Mercenary City together. Bi Dao remained with the Changyang clan. He had just obtained a portion of Venerable Poison Sword's powers, so he needed quite a bit of time to absorb it. Only then would it become his own power. Rui Jin and Hong Lian entered the Saint Artifact. They would only appear by Jian Chen's side when he needed them, while He Yu remained outside to accompany Jian Chen. Mercenary City warmly welcomed Jian Chen once he arrived. He met with the Grand Elder without any obstructions. Jian Chen could clearly feel an odd presence on Tianjian at this time. He could closely sense that Tianjian's vitality was leaking away at an extremely slow rate. Jian Chen knew that Tianjian had approached the end of his life long ago. Saint Kings only had a lifespan of 6,000 years, and Tianjian had reached Saint King 5,000 years ago. Coupled with the time he had spent cultivating before he had reached Saint King, there was not much more of his 6,000-year lifespan left. Jian Chen suddenly felt a deep sorrow within him. Tianjian had helped him too much before. He had begun to view Tianjian as his own family member long ago, so he just could not bear to helplessly watch Tianjian leave him. However, he was unable to change Tianjian's fate with his current powers. Jian Chen, I've already learned about the matters with Ming Dong. Thank you for earning such a great opportunity for Ming Dong. Tianjian's white clothes fluttered in the wind. He remained as free and approachable as before. Although Ming Dong was not connected to Tianjian by blood in any way, Tianjian still treated him as his own son because of the connection of his ancestor. Jian Chen stared deeply at Tianjian as his emotions became complicated. He secretly sighed inside and avoided the topic of Tianjian's lifespan. He said, Ming Dong is a brother of mine, and we've gone through thick and thin together. I should be helping him, so there's no need to thank me, Senior Tianjian. Jian Chen paused slightly before he continued, Senior Tianjian, I've mainly come this time to see Tai Ta. May I ask where he is? Chapter 1098, Visiting Dragon Island once more, 2. Come with me, smiled Tianjian. Then, he led Jian Chen through a palace and, in the end, stopped before a huge square. A 3-meter-tall, burly man swung a huge axe in the center of the square while sweat poured from him. An extremely powerful battle intent enveloped the entire square. The elevated battle intent could affect every single person's soul and make their blood boil. It could reawaken the desire for battle hidden within everyone. The huge man's every stroke was natural. The strokes flowed perfectly and flawlessly between one another. They all possessed a heart-shaking might as if they could split the entire world in half. Jian Chen could even feel the battle intent as he stood at the edge of the square. The blood within him boiled. He felt tempted to find someone and engage in battle. Tai Ta sure is the war god of the 100 races. The speed at which his strength increases is astonishing. Without any intentional cultivation in the past few years, he has become this powerful already. The energy within him is probably at the 5th heavenly layer of Saint Ruler, but he should be able to match 8th heavenly layer Saint Rulers. If he uses the mysteries of war, he might even be able to fight 9th heavenly layer Saint Rulers, Tianjian explained with a deep voice that carried many emotions. At this moment, Tai Ta seemed to notice Jian Chen and Tianjian's arrival. He stopped swinging his axe and excitedly ran over with it on a shoulder. He said in a low, muffled voice, "Jian Chen, you've come. I've already stayed here for so long. I'm about to die from boredom. Just say something on my behalf to Senior Tianjian to convince him to let me go. I want to go outside." Tai Ta grumbled. Without Ming Dong by his side, he became even lonelier during these past few years. "Tai Ta, actually, I've come to find you this time to take you out," smiled Jian Chen. "Really? Jian Chen, are you sure that you're not tricking me?" Tai Ta's eyes immediately lit up as joy crossed his face. "Of course it's true. As your best friend, would never trick you even if I have to die," Jian Chen replied. Tianjian frowned slightly and sternly said, "Jian Chen, Tai Ta's identity is extremely special. If you take him outside, it's extremely likely that someone who knows about the matters of the ancient times will recognize him. It'll become troublesome then. Don't worry, Senior Tianjian. Since I'm brave enough to bring him out, I can obviously protect him. Even if the 10 protector clans come, they won't be able to touch him at all. At that time, all I need to do is throw Tai Ta into the Bright Moon Divine Hall, and then they'll be helpless." Jian Chen was filled with confidence. He had the perfect insurance for Tai Ta's safety. Tianjian did not add anything else since he knew that Jian Chen had already made up his mind. He understood Jian Chen's powers extremely well, so he did not stop Jian Chen from taking Tai Ta out. Jian Chen left Mercenary City with Tai Ta. Then, he asked He Yu to rip open a space gate to Dragon Island. He entered it with Tai Ta by his side. They arrived outside Dragon Island after they passed through the space gate. They could immediately smell the moist sea breeze, and below them was the deep blue sea. Before them was an extremely dense region of fog that connected the sky with the surface of the sea. "Jian Chen, why have you brought me here?" Tai Ta scratched his head as he asked Jian Chen in confusion. Jian Chen smiled mysteriously, "Tai Ta, you'll find out later on. Come, follow me, but do be careful. Once you enter the fog, it's a region of illusion. Everything you see in the fog is fake, so do not treat it as if it is real." Jian Chen took a step into the fog first while Tai Ta followed close behind. The black-robed He Yu stepped into the fog last, behind both of them. As they passed through the mist, the three of them experienced many attacks from the odd fish, but it did not pose any harm to them. The illusions in the mist constantly appeared and conjured various images to affect their mental state. However, now that Jian Chen's soul was extremely powerful, they could no longer affect him much. "Dad, Mom, Grandpa, why have you appeared here?" Suddenly, Jian Chen heard Tai Ta's voice. Clearly, Tai Ta had fallen into an illusion. Even with Jian Chen's warning, the illusions were just too realistic. It was almost impossible to distinguish between real and fake, which caused people to fall for them very easily. Jian Chen's heart tightened. Just as he wanted to pull Tai Ta's arm and swiftly rush out of the region of mist, the imprint of the war axe on the center of Tai Ta's eyebrows began to flicker with a faint golden light. Immediately, an extremely powerful battle intent began to radiate out, shattering the illusion and causing the mist to violently surge. So it was fake. These illusions are just too powerful. I had actually thought it was real earlier, Tai Ta sighed in amazement. The three of them passed through the region of mist very quickly. They flew at a low altitude, below 10 meters, as they headed for the center of the island. Jian Shen and Tai Ta ripped to shreds all the living corpses they came across. When Jian Shen had entered this place with the heavenly enchantress for the first time, they had feared the living corpses very much. They would detour around any they came across, unwilling to provoke them so easily if at all. However, these living corpses were nothing to Jian Shen now. Even the Saint King living corpses they came across were weak, like ants before Jian Shen. Jian Shen, Tai Ta, and He Yu passed through the mountains and forests and broke through many formations in the meantime. They arrived at an empty piece of land in the center of the island very quickly. Weird. I clearly remember that it was this place, so why is it gone now? Jian Shen looked around as he mumbled in doubt. Jian Shen, why have you brought me here? Is there some kind of treasure? Tai Ta could not help but ask once more. He felt extremely curious. Jian Shen said nothing. After he pondered for a while with a frown, an idea flashed through his head. He mumbled to himself, there are many formations hidden on Dragon Island. It's extremely difficult for people to detect it. Maybe the droplet of Ergin's blood is hidden in the empty space as well. A spot where it'll only appear if the formation has been triggered. Jian Shen believed this idea more and more as he thought about it. Afterward, he called out the white tiger and told He Yu and Tai Ta to wait where they were. He jumped on the back of the white tiger and began to run around wildly. Jian Shen did not dare to risk himself in the formation formed from a drop of Ergin's blood. Ergin's was someone who had surpassed Saint Emperor, so no matter how confident Jian Shen was, he did not wish to test the might of the killing formation. He could still remember that the Saint King corpses that entered the killing formation were silently turned to dust. Suddenly, Jian Shen's vision began to change. The green mountains disappeared, and he suddenly appeared in a bleak wasteland. There was no vegetation, and it stretched as far as the eye could see. No one knew just how large it was. This is the place, Jian Shen rejoiced inside and immediately thought of the previous war god he had encountered here. A surging battle intent suddenly filled the bleak world and completely engulfed the region. It seemed to have become its own domain. A condescending aura filled the battle intent, as if only the owner of the aura was supreme. Jian Shen had rarely ever come across such a powerful battle intent. It seemed to possess a terrifying might that was able to rip through space and destroy worlds. Bang! 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 With a series of booms, the ground began to violently tremble, like an earthquake was occurring. A golden figure appeared on the edge of Jian Shen's vision. The figure possessed great stature and was clad in golden armor. He carried a golden war axe on his shoulders, and his eyes burned with battle intent. He seemed to have been born for battle. He was the war god from ancient times, Ergin's. Even though he was conjured from a droplet of blood, he still possessed the might of a war god. Jian Shen's body shook, and he immediately paled. Every step taken by Ergin seemed to land on his heart, which made Jian Shen feel like his heart was about to shatter. Jian Shen's senses were much more powerful than before since this was his second time experiencing this formation. Although he possessed strength that rivaled 7th heavenly layer Saint King's, he felt fragile before the golden figure. He even felt disillusioned, where even Saint Emperor who fell into the formation would not be able to face Ergin's. Although the differences between Saint Ruler, Saint King, and Saint Emperor were huge, they all belonged to sainthood. Ergin's had surpassed Saint Emperor and stepped into the Origin Realm. The Origin Realm and sainthood were two completely different realms of cultivation. The differences could be described as chasms. The difference between Saint Emperors and those in the Origin Realm were akin to Heaven's Saint Masters and Saint Rulers. Shall Bai, let's leave, quick, Jian Shen called out to the white tiger. The battle intent had already locked onto him and had rendered him motionless. Seriousness also filled the white tiger's eyes. After the supreme battle intent enveloped it, it too could feel the strength of the opponent. The white tiger immediately growled and leaped out of the formation without any obstructions. As the white tiger pulled Jian Shen out of the formation, the surrounding scenery returned to its previous state. The space behind them rippled violently. They could clearly see a droplet of golden blood floating in the middle of the air. Tai Ta, come quick, Jian Chen called out to Tai Ta, who was quite far away. Tai Ta and He Yu immediately shot over from afar and arrived before Jian Chen with a few steps. The two of them gazed unblinkingly at the droplet of golden blood that hung in the air. What is this? I actually feel a fear that originates from the depths of my soul. It makes me tremble, and I can feel an extremely powerful and pure energy hidden inside. He Yu closely stared at the golden droplet of blood. He felt extremely astounded since even Saint Emperor could not give him such an intense feeling. Chapter 1099, Legacy of the War God. Tai Ta's gaze became rather complicated. At that moment, his heart struggled to remain calm, beginning to wildly beat and shiver. Even his burly body shook slightly as a deep feeling of sorrow radiated from him. Jian Chen, just what is that? Why do I feel so sad and painful when I see it? Jian Chen, I feel horrible inside. Tai Ta's expression suddenly became extremely pained. Even he did not know why he felt like that. That's the blood of the war god Ergens. Tai Ta, the owner of the blood is your predecessor, Jian Chen explained with mixed emotions. What? This is blood left behind by the ancient war god, Ergens? He Yu was shocked. However, he eased up soon and said, no wonder my body shakes. So it's a droplet of essence blood from Ergens. Tai Ta stood there blankly as he stared at the droplet of golden blood. Two clear streaks of tears ran down his face. He was the new war god. Although he was different than the previous god, they possessed a similar bloodline that came from the same origins. Tai Ta seemed to see the previous war god leading his clansmen into war as he stood before the droplet of blood, searching for a safe place for his clansmen with all he had before dying heroically in a foreign land. A deep sorrow welled up in Tai Ta. He seemed to have formed a subtle connection with the droplet of blood before him. The space in front of him blurred and the golden droplet of blood became fainter and fainter, as if it would disappear into the empty space at any moment. The formation there would only be activated if someone entered it. Otherwise, it would remain well hidden in empty space. Now that Jian Chen had already left after triggering it, the formation would disappear soon. At this moment, the drop of golden blood began to forcefully move up and down. A blinding golden light radiated from the droplet, forcefully stopping the formation's power. An extremely powerful ripple of energy erupted from the blood with a surging battle intent. Bang! 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 With several consecutive booms in the surroundings, the energy from the blood broke through the formation which restricted it, causing the surrounding mountains and rocks to crack. No longer restricted by the formation, the supreme battle intent and terrifying energy within the blood immediately began to radiate out, enveloping the entire island. It caused the mountain ranges to violently tremble. The drop of blood turned into a golden streak of light as it flew toward Tai Ta. It then disappeared into his forehead. Immediately, the battle axe imprint between Tai Ta's eyebrows began to radiate with blinding light, outshining the sun. The golden glow illuminated the world, dyeing the world gold. Tai Ta could not help but close his eyes. His consciousness had already entered a bleak world completely enveloped by a supreme battle intent. However, not only did Tai Ta fail to find the battle intent to be uncomfortable, he found it to be extremely warm and comforting. The feeling was like a child who had entered his mother's bosom after leaving home for many years. 10 meters in front of Tai Ta, a man clad in golden armor stood with his arms crossed and with his back to Tai Ta. A supreme presence radiated from him, as if he was a god of the world. Tai Ta could not see the man's face, but he felt extremely close to the man. This closeness was hundreds even thousands times more powerful than what he felt with his parents. My name is Ergens. I am a member of the warring gods. Only those who are connected to me by blood can awaken this imprint, a heavy voice boomed through the world. It was powerful and contained a strong attack toward souls. Only those of the warring gods could withstand it. To think that the people of the warring gods are born from the world, blessed by the world, and inherit their abilities from the world. Our battle prowess is peerless, yet I died in a foreign battlefield in the end. What a pity, what a regrettable matter, a deep sorrow filled the world. This was the feeling that Ergens had left behind all those years ago. The magical beasts went too far. They invaded my homeland and chased away my citizens. I led my clansmen to fight the magical beasts, but I was forced to flee since I could not defeat the winged tiger god. I then turned to the Tianyuan continent, yet I was stopped by Mo Tianyun. To think that I was a warring god, possessing peerless battle prowess and abilities that came from the world itself, invincible against those at the same level of cultivation, but I was still not the winged tiger god or Mo Tianyun's opponent. What a joke, what a funny joke. I've already died, but I still worry about my citizens. New war god, go complete my final wish. Protect my citizens well and help them find an even more beautiful world. In return, I shall bequeath this drop of essence blood upon you. With that, Ergens' body suddenly shattered, disintegrating into countless fragments. The winged tiger god and Mo Tianyun are unfathomable. They have already broken through the limitations of life and survive with the world. They are eternal, so do not avenge me. The moment before Ergens had completely turned into fragments, another voice boomed through the sky. Afterward, Ergens completely disappeared and the bleak world loudly shattered apart. The fragments of Ergens were split into two portions. One consisted of fragments of memories that entered Tai Ta's soul, while the other fragments were the energy within the essence blood, which fused with Tai Ta's body. Immediately, Tai Ta felt many things appear in his head. These things were all the battle comprehensions of Ergens, containing many frighteningly powerful mysteries of war. The droplet of essence blood had already turned into a powerful energy that flowed through Tai Ta's body. Although there was very little of it, it was still energy left behind by Ergens. It contained vast amounts of energy of the world that had been compressed into a tiny droplet, so it was extremely terrifying and powerful. Just that tiny amount of energy was enough to rival a portion of all the energy within a Saint Emperor, enough to rival several Saint Kings. Tai Ta's entire body was coated by a blinding golden light. He continuously absorbed the memories of Ergens as the extremely pure energy flowed unceasingly into his body. It was converted into Tai Ta's own power at an unbelievable rate. Warring gods were birthed by the world and were richly endowed with advantages. As Ergens possessed the same bloodline as Tai Ta, there were no backlashes or consequences for Tai Ta as he increased his strength through the energy Ergens had left behind. Tai Ta's presence rapidly strengthened, and the power within him increased quickly as well. He went from the 5th heavenly layer to the 6th heavenly layer very quickly, and not only did his rate of increase fail to show any signs of slowly down, it instead skyrocketed, becoming faster and faster. Jian Shen and He Yu stood 30 meters away as they stared at Tai Ta unblinkingly, silently watching over him. Looks like Ergens' drop of essence blood is being absorbed by Tai Ta. This is a droplet of blood left behind by someone who has surpassed Saint Emperor. The energy hidden inside is so terrifying that it can even injure Saint Emperors, yet Tai Ta's obtained it so easily. He Yu emotionally sighed as he looked at Tai Ta with some envy. I've guessed correctly. Ergens' droplet of blood really is extremely beneficial to Tai Ta. Now that Tai Ta has come across this item, I wonder what level his strength will reach. Jian Shen was filled with anticipation. 7th heavenly layer. 8th heavenly layer. 9th heavenly layer. Tai Ta's strength skyrocketed at an incomparable pace. In just half a day, he reached the 9th heavenly layer of Saint Ruler from his original 5th heavenly layer, bypassing 4 lesser cultivation levels. Jian Shen clenched his hands as he stared at Tai Ta without blinking at all. Although Saint Ruler and Saint King both belonged to sainthood, the difference between the two was still very great. He wondered if Tai Ta could borrow the energy within the blood to break through the barrier of the 9th heavenly layer and reach Saint King. Tai Ta's presence at the 9th heavenly layer slowly increased. Now, the energy he needed for each level of cultivation was increasing, which was why it took him longer and longer to break through. Finally, Tai Ta's presence reached the very peak of the 9th heavenly layer. As Jian Shen watched with much anticipation, a vast and surging pressure immediately appeared from Tai Ta's presence. It was extremely weak at first before quickly strengthening and blanketing the surroundings. At the same time, the supreme battle intent sandwiched within the presence underwent a qualitative change, becoming much more powerful than before. Suddenly, a golden streak of light cut through the sky. It passed through the forbidden altitude of the Dragon Island and landed accurately in between Tai Ta's eyebrows, on the imprint of the battle axe. This was the world passing on its teachings. Warring gods were born from the world and were blessed by the world. Every time they entered a new cultivation realm, the world would pass on teachings. Tai Ta subconsciously raised his head and pointed the imprint at the sky. He accepted the teachings of the world as mysterious information appeared from the void, entering between Tai Ta's eyebrows through the golden streak of light. In a desolate continent, a group of life forms vastly different from humans inhabited the land. There were 10-meter-tall giants as well as handsome and pretty winged elves with pointy ears. There were also dark-skinned dwarves that were no taller than a meter, and even rock men completely made from stone. The continent was known as the Wasteland Continent, home to the 100 races. It was inhabited by a myriad of races, not just a single race like humans. However, there were some races who seemed extremely similar to humans. At the center of the continent stood a mountain range that reached into the clouds. It was barren, without any vegetation. There were odd rock formations that stood around the dangerous terrain. It was unscalable. At the highest peak of the mountain range, a divine golden hall radiated with blinding light all year round. It stood there silently and radiated with a simple but ancient presence. It had existed for countless years and was almost as old as the ground. Chapter 1100, Shock of the 100 Races. The Divine Hall was the most sacred place among the members of the 100 Races. It was the pillar of support for the entire continent, the War God Hall. Currently, a wrinkly, winged, old elven man with pointy ears sat on the ground within a majestic hall of the War God Hall. He glowed with a green light as his vitality rapidly leaked away. His soul was quickly weakening as well, and even his skin was shriveling up. Hundreds of people with different statuses sat before the elven man. Sorrow filled all of their faces. Don't feel sad, don't be sorrowful. Life and death are things everyone needs to go through. I am only leaving sooner, the elven old man indifferently smiled. He was a hall elder of the War God Hall, having reached the great perfection of Saint King long ago. He was currently facing the end of his life. His soul would completely dissipate without much longer. All that would be left would be his body. Zohar, go without worry. I shall be accompanying you in 100 years, a red-robed old man hoarsely said. His mood was extremely heavy. He too was a hall elder, and his name was Yen Sun, and he only had 100 years left. The elven old man looked at the sky and deeply sighed. Reaching Saint Emperor is becoming more and more difficult now. His soul was rapidly dissipating into the surroundings. He had already reached the end of his life, and the moment his soul completely vanished, he would have passed away. Suddenly, he became surprised. His eyes immediately began to shine with interest as he cried out, This is the presence of the War God. I actually feel the presence of the War God. The War God of the 100 Races has finally reappeared. What the elven old man said was shocking, so shocking in fact that the expression of everyone present changed. Zohar, what did you say? You've sensed the presence of the War God? A hall elder with similar strength cried out in astoundment. Everyone there became shocked. Disbelief flooded all of their faces, but that disbelief was soon replaced by ravishing joy. The War God of the 100 Races had disappeared for over 1,000,000 years. The War God meant a lot to the 100 Races. Not only was he the god to all members of the 100 Races, he was their pillar of support and a sign for the blossoming glory of the 100 Races. The elven old man became extremely excited. He said with a trembling voice, My soul is dissipating into the surroundings, so it fused with the world for a very short instance. In that moment, I sensed the presence of the War God. Zohar, are you sure it's the War God? Are you completely sure? A white-robed hall elder asked. He too was extremely excited. The elven old man stood up and gazed into the distance. He confidently said, I've sensed the presence of the war god many times in the Forbidden Grounds, and this supreme battle intent can only come from the war god. No one can imitate it, so it can't be wrong. It can't be wrong at all. It must be the war god. Our war god has finally descended to this world, and the 100 races can soar once more. The old man became extremely emotional as 2 turbid streaks of tears rolled down his cheeks. Can you sense where the war god is right now? We'll go welcome the great war god immediately, a hall elder urgently inquired. The soul of the old man dissipated faster and faster as his vitality leaked away. He became more and more shriveled. He shook his head and said with a face full of pity, I could only sense the war god's presence the moment my soul dissipated into the surroundings and became part of the world. I cannot sense where the war god is. We'll send orders to find the great war god. Even if we have to search the entire continent, we need to find the war god, a well-respected elder of the war god hall emotionally said. Now that the new war god has been born, we need to collect the remaining beast furs as soon as possible so that the war god can become even more powerful. Otherwise, I worry that the magical beasts and humans will harm him before he fully matures, said a burly middle-aged man. Although he sat on the ground, he was still 5 meters tall. He was the patriarch of the giants. I've just received news that the assassination organization we had secretly developed on the Tianyuan continent has been devastated by someone. The difficulty of finding the beast furs on the Tianyuan continent has become too great now, a hall elder said with a deep voice. What? The Yama hall's been wiped out? Doesn't that mean the only way for us to find where the beast furs are is to cast the secret technique? The price to cast the secret technique is far too great. It needs the sacrifice of a saint king at great perfection, and the activity it creates is just too large. Not only will we find out, even the protector clans will know. We cast the secret technique several times in the past with a few elders, but the furs all ended up in the hands of the protector clans even though we found where they were. It's almost impossible to take them back once the protector clans get their hands on them. With the searching done by over 10 elders in the past, 13 of the 18 beast furs have appeared. We are only in possession of 4 of them. The remaining 9 are with the protector clans and mercenary city of the Tianyuan continent as well as the beast god hall. We don't know where the 5 final beast furs are. If we need to gather all 18 pieces, we need to get the beast furs in the hands of the protector clans and the beast god continent. We need to go to war with them sooner or later, so it's no problem if they know where the beast furs are. The upper echelon of the war god hall discussed the situation. Today was the day when a hall elder was supposed to pass away from old age, and it was supposed to be a day filled with sorrow. Instead, the atmosphere had reversed because of the news of the rebirth of the war god. Nothing was more important to the 100 races than the rebirth of the war god. The old elf said, You're right. Now that the war god has appeared once more, we need to assemble all 18 beast furs in the shortest amount of time possible. We will end up fighting the protector clans and the beast god continent sooner or later, so why should we worry about the remaining beast furs falling into their hands now? My life should be dissipating into the world anyway, so my life is as useless as a feather, but it looks like I can utilize my life for an even greater cause. Why don't I sacrifice my life and find the remaining 5 beast furs? We can only do that now. Zohar, you don't have much time left, so immediately cast the secret technique to find the remaining beast furs. Jarlai, immediately use the war god's order to summon all the saint kings of the continent so they can gather at the war god hall as soon as possible, and then send emissaries to scour the entire continent for the great war god. The fire-robed Yensun decisively handed out commands. Summoning all the saint kings of the 100 races? Elder, are we declaring war on the Tianyuan continent? Everyone in the hall became shocked. The hall elder shook his head. At that moment, his eyes became extremely narrowed, as if he could look through space. He seemed extremely terrifying as he coldly said, No, we are not declaring war on the Tianyuan continent. We are declaring war on the protector clans. If the other beast furs appear, people of the protector clans will definitely go forth to collect them for themselves. Their clans will definitely be weakened by this, and we will take advantage of their weakness to attack the protector clans. We will take back the beast furs. Esteemed elder, will we really succeed if we attack the protector clans? A famed expert among the people asked. The elder replied, our overall strength may pale in comparison to the Tianyuan continent by a lot, but our experts have all gathered together this time. Even if the 10 protector clans work together, they cannot stop us. On the Tianyuan continent, the 10 protector clans and Mercenary City were the supreme rulers without a doubt, but there were also many ancient clans and large organizations other as well as quite a few hermit experts who resided in desolate regions. As a result, even though the 100 races was far weaker than the whole Tianyuan continent, they were strong enough to deal with just the protector clans. With the war god's order out, all the Saint Kings of the Wasteland continent ripped open space gates to make their way to the war god hall. Although many of them were very far away, traversing the distance was just as easy as breathing for the Saint Kings. Very soon, over 200 Saint Kings gathered at the war god hall. It was a huge number, all the Saint Kings of the 100 races. Yen Sun was a hall elder of the war god hall. He had reached the great perfection of Saint King many years ago and had already lived for 6,000 years. He had 100 years left before the end of his life, which was why he possessed such great prestige on the continent. He was one of the few who stood at the very top among the 100 races. He explained the rebirth of the war god as well as the plan to search for the beast furs, informing everyone. All the experts that had gathered there became extremely excited when they heard that the war god had been reborn. Some of the older members had even begun to uncontrollably cry. At the same time, the Elven Hall elder sacrificed his life to cast the secret technique to search for the beast furs. The map of the Tianyuan continent appeared in the empty space before him and constantly grew. In the end, a city and an ancient mountain range appeared as two golden balls of light constantly flickered in the two images. The elven elder's body quietly turned into ash after casting the secret technique. Even his skeleton was not left behind, but his soul had already dissipated. All that was left was his will. Most of my energy has already dispersed, so I could only find 2 of the 5 beast furs. The 3 others have been obstructed by a mysterious force, so I couldn't find them. However, I am certain that the 3 of them are together. Chapter 1101, Invasion of the 100 Races. 1. The Elven Elder completely disappeared from the world since his soul had already dissipated. Originally he could have left behind a complete body, but he turned into a pile of ash because he cast the secret technique. Great-grandfather, old majesty, the elves in the hall all mourned as sorrow overwhelmed them. Elder Yen Sun stood silently in tribute to the elf a little longer before quickly dismissing his emotions. He coldly said, the protector clans have a total of 6 beast furs, and they are in the hands of the Shinshao sect, the Padian sect, the Yangji sect, the Tyrant's Blade School, the Heavenly Incense School, and the Moyuan clan. We will split into 8 parties. 2 will go take the 2 beast furs that have not been claimed while the remaining 6 will attack the 6 protector clans. Remember to bring the forbidden artifacts to counter the emperor armaments of the protector clans. Mercenary City has the protection of a barrier spirit, so it's extremely tough. Once we obtain the 6 beast furs from the protector clans, we will work together to use the forbidden artifacts and break through the barrier spirit's defenses. In a medium-sized kingdom on the Tianyuan continent, a middle-aged man dressed as a mercenary sat all by himself at a table while he drank. His appearance was ordinary, the type where he would not raise any attention if he was thrown into a crowd. However, he radiated with a ferocious presence, deterring the other drinking mercenaries from approaching him. Although the man was only an Earth Saint Master, he was considered one of the rare experts in a medium-sized city. No one was willing to provoke him easily. Suddenly, the space ring on the man's finger began to glow with a blinding white light. A palm-sized piece of fur flew out and shot high into the sky, radiating with a vast energy. It fluttered in the wind, having enlarged to be 10 meters across. The profound presence of the truths of the world radiated from the beast fur. They seemed like the mysteries of the world, but they were even more complicated and difficult to comprehend. The white beast furs hid a huge secret. Jian Shen had only triggered some of the simple mysteries of the world hiding within them, allowing him to reach Saint Ruler. Currently, the beast fur had been fully activated, awakening all the secrets hidden inside. Not only did the surrounding space violently tremble as the profound truths of the world radiated from the beast fur, but a strange ripple also expanded across the entire continent, and all the supreme experts of the continent could sense it. An ancient clan stood in some ancient mountains. There was a similar, 10-meter-long beast fur floating in the air. It too radiated with the truths of the world, which were far more profound than the mysteries of the world, and coupled with it was a strange ripple that expanded across the continent. Beside the beast fur was a saint king floating in the air. He radiated with a blanketing presence. He wanted to put the beast fur away, but to his surprise, an invisible energy poured out of the beast fur and formed an independent domain that kept him away. He could not approach it even with his strength. Just what are the origins of this odd beast fur? What are the secrets hidden within it? The Saint King growled as he felt panic-stricken inside. The beast fur had caused too great of a disturbance, and he worried that it would attract other great experts. In the Pure Heart Pavilion of the Protector clans, the sect master Wuchenzi stared into the distance with her steady eyes as she murmured, "The 100 races have actually cast the secret technique again in search of the fur from the winged tiger god. Sigh, it's very difficult for them to assemble all 18 pieces, so why bother?" The great elders that were currently cultivating in the Changyang clan snapped open their eyes at the same time. With a movement, they disappeared from their rooms, reappearing in the conference hall within the Divine Hall. Some heaven-defying treasure must have appeared on the Tian Yuan continent. That's why there's such a great disturbance. I can actually feel the truths of the world that far exceed the mysteries of the world I have comprehended. Jury, Zhenghua, the two of you might as well go out and have a look. It doesn't matter what the treasure is, you have to bring it back, Changyang Qingyun sternly gave out orders. Changyang Qing Jury and Changyang Yuan Zhenghua nodded and left the Protector clan together. All the great elders within the Yangji sect had already gathered together. Yangzi sat high up at the front as he sternly said, "You must have already sensed it as well. A strange ripple has actually expanded through the Tian Yuan continent, and I can vaguely sense the profound truths of the world within it. It's difficult to comprehend even for me. The question is just what is this item that can cause such a great disturbance?" A great elder asked out of curiosity. "It doesn't matter what it is, we need to go have a look. If it's some peerless treasure, we need to use everything we can to take it for ourselves. Then let Tian Shuzi and me go have a look." Two great elders immediately left the Yangji sect. At the same time, Bi Dao, who sat on top of the Emperor Armament in the forbidden grounds of the Tyrant's Blade School, slowly opened his eyes. His eyes seemed to contain a whole different world, giving off an unfathomable feeling. This is a pulse of origin energy, though it's a pity that it's just the presence and not the actual thing. Otherwise, I could have used it to increase my strength. Reaching that point, Gui Dao suddenly paused. A gleam of light flickered through his eyes, and he said with a deep voice, "No, there seems to be much more in there." Gui Dao sensed it carefully. After a while, he became rather stern. He murmured, "My strength may be nowhere as great as before, but to trick me is still not easy. There's something hidden within the beast fur that even I cannot detect. Looks like his strength already exceeds me when I was at my peak. He has probably attained godhood already. Only someone that powerful can kill a member of the warring gods. The fur of the winged tiger god is thorny object. Once dragged into it, you might even end up offending the people of the warring gods. The warring gods are people who reside at the top and have the potential to become grand primes. They're not people who a mere adventurer like me can afford to offend." Gui Dao mumbled to himself as deep fear filled his eyes. The disturbance from the two beast furs attracted the 10 Protector clans. Other than the Pure Heart Pavilion and the Tyrant's Blade School, experts from the 8 other clans were all mobilized in attempt to obtain this peerless treasure. Quite a few large clans and organizations along with some ancient clans and experts who hid in desolate regions took part as well. They all traveled toward the two beast furs from various parts of the continent. The middle-aged man with the beast fur could no longer bother with drinking anymore in the medium-sized city. He immediately leaped out from the tavern and stared at the 10-meter-long beast fur in shock. His expression was filled with excitement as he murmured, "Treasure, treasure, it really was a treasure. I'm rich now." The beast fur fluttered several hundred meters in the wind as its terrifying ripples of energy alarmed everyone within the city. Immediately, a large number of mercenaries and merchants stepped out of their inns and stared at the sky in shock. Arg! A long roar rang out from afar as an Earth Saint Master shot into the sky, flickering with bright saint force. He wanted to take the beast fur. The mercenary originally in possession of the beast fur immediately fell into a rage when he saw this. He roared out furiously, "This is mine. Don't steal it from me." With that, he drew his saint weapon. Saint force surged out of his body as he charged toward the other Earth Saint Master. He wanted to obstruct him from taking the beast fur. The two of them began to fight very quickly. Although there were no Heaven Saint Masters in the medium-sized city, there were quite a few Earth Saint Masters, far more than just the two of them. As the two of them fought on equal ground, another 4 Earth Saint Masters leaped high up into the air. They shot toward the sky and flickered with powerful energy. However, the beast fur levitated at an altitude too high. It was several hundred meters up, and there was nothing in the surroundings that they could borrow to jump higher. It was impossible for them to achieve such an altitude with their strength as Earth Saint Masters, so the 4 of them fell down powerlessly once they broke an altitude of 100 meters. The Earth Saint Masters were all filled with an unwillingness to give in. No one wanted to give up on this treasure that they could tell was valuable with a single glance. They all roared out and used everything they had to jump once more. However, the highest they could reach was 200 meters, still quite far from the beast fur. God damn it, why is it floating so high? An Earth Saint Master swore furiously. He was filled with a strong feeling of regret. At this moment, the space in the sky began to wildly distort. A space gate suddenly appeared and 2 white-robed old men with raised eyebrows stepped out. They can rip through space to create space gates. They're Saint Kings. A knowledgeable Earth Saint Master cried out. The appearance of the 2 old men immediately attracted everyone's attention. All the people in the city immediately fell silent when they heard the word Saint King. A dead silence filled the entire city as everyone glanced at the 2 old men together. Their eyes were filled with deep admiration and curiosity. Saint Kings were existences that stood at the apex of the Tianyuan continent. Not only were their numbers extremely few on the Tianyuan continent, it was difficult for an ordinary people to come across one even within a span of 1,000 years. These experts, without a doubt, were like gods to the mercenaries and merchants of the lowest level. They stood at the very top and were dignified and divine. Chapter 1102, Invasion of the 100 Races, 2. The 2 old men who had emerged from the crack in space stared at the huge white beast fur floating before them as a sliver of amazement appeared in their eyes. One of them said, "I never thought that the great disturbance would actually come from this odd piece of beast fur. I wonder what mysteries hide within it." The other old man stared closely at the beast fur as he pondered. He said, "Weird. Why do I feel like this piece of beast fur is the same as the beast fur at the top layer of the treasury from our Shinshao sect? Just the size is different." The 2 old men were great elders of the Shinshao sect. Now that you mention it, it really does seem rather similar, but that doesn't matter. We need to obtain it, said the other old man. He took a step forward and traversed close to 100 meters to reach the beast fur. At this moment, another space gate ripped open. 2 bearded middle-aged men walked out in tight blue robes. A gleam of light immediately flashed through their eyes when they saw one of the Shinshao sect great elders reach toward it. One of them immediately punched out from afar. The fist broke through the air and a vast energy shot towards the great elder like a dragon. The second great elder of the Shinshao sect roared out. Just as he was about to do something, he was locked on by the vast presence from the other middle-aged man. The great elder who tried to take the beast fur understood the strength of the punch. He became stern and gave up on the beast fur, striking out with his palm with lightning speed to deal with the punch. Without an expected boom, the two energies collided mid-air and actually nullified each other. They both vanished. They were only several hundred meters above ground, and there was a medium-sized city that reached into the millions right below them. If they struck out with all they had as Saint Kings, the residual energy would definitely wreak havoc upon the city below. It would lead to hundreds of thousands, or even millions, of deaths. Then the both of them would suffer the punishment of celestial decay. They needed to control their attacks when they were so close to a densely packed city. People of the Moyuan clan, this beast fur was first discovered by our Shinshao sect, so it is ours. Do you want to steal it from us? A great elder from the Shinshao sect called out. You can cut the bullshit. I'm no kid that you can just trick. Do you really think that it's your Shinshao sect just because you said so? I can say it's the Moyuan clans if that's the case, sneered the middle-aged man who had punched out. People of the Shinshao sect, this beast fur already belongs to the Moyuan clan. Please leave immediately. I don't wish to see our two organizations fall out with one another over something like this. The other middle-aged man from the Moyuan clan spoke as well. The two great elders of the Shinshao sect became pale white when they heard those words. They furiously yelled out, Moyuan clan, aren't you acting a little too haughty? Do you really think that our Shinshao sect fears you? On the surface, the 10 protector clans were the most powerful organizations on the continent and were responsible with guarding the continent, but they would often get into conflicts with one another below the surface. They would even fall out with one another sometimes. A middle-aged man sneered. The two of them were slightly stronger than the two great elders of the Shinshao sect, so they obviously did not fear them. Immediately, one of them extended his hand to take the beast fur. Don't you dare take something that belongs to the Shinshao sect. How could the two great elders let the people of the Moyuan clan take something that belonged to them? They immediately worked together and became embroiled in a great battle with the people of the Moyuan clan. After clashing several times, the surrounding space began to violently pulse. Space gates suddenly appeared again and Saint Kings emerged from them. They either radiated with vast presences or seemed like ordinary people. Other than people from the 10 protector clans, many ancestors of ancient clans as well as a few people who belonged to no organizations appeared. The situation immediately became messy with their arrival. The people of the Shinshao sect and Moyuan clan stopped fighting as well and stood about indifferently. Ha ha ha, it sure is lively here. I never thought that so many renowned people would come. However, there's only one treasure, but so many of us. It'll be hard to distribute it, a Saint King from a protector clan laughed. Those who wish not to take part leave immediately. Some people have no need to take part in this, a bald old man coldly commanded. He glared at the weaker ancestors of ancient clans and those who were not part of any organizations. He acted extremely harsh. The weaker Saint Kings who did not belong to the protector clans immediately revealed horrible expressions when they heard his orders. However, they dared not to speak against the great elders of the protector clans even though they were furious, so a few of them immediately ripped open a space gate and left. With their departure, there were only 20-odd people left. Besides the people who belonged to the protector clans, there were a few experts who were relatively stronger and did not fear the protector clans. The bald old man raised an eyebrow complacently when he saw that he had scared away quite a few Saint Kings with a single sentence. He said, "Now, let's properly discuss how we will split this treasure." As soon as the bald man stopped talking, the space nearby began to violently tremble. A huge space gate suddenly formed and a tremendous presence leaked out from inside. It stunned all the experts of the 10 protector clans, and they failed to return to their senses for some time. 20 or 30 experts charged out of the space gate extremely quickly with surging presences. Every single one of them was a Saint King, and there was no lack of Saint Kings at great perfection. The group was extremely powerful. As soon as the people emerged from the space gate, vast amounts of energy flickered in the surroundings. They drew their weapons and began attacking all the human Saint Kings present while one of the Saint Kings at great perfection charged for the beast fur. He grabbed it before quickly throwing it into his space ring. Shit, they're people of the 100 races. A great elder from a protector clan recognized who the people were. His facial expression drastically changed as he cried out. Without any hesitation, he immediately drew his saint weapon to face off against them. The remaining human saint kings all returned to their senses as well. Faced against such great foes, no one bothered with the beast fur anymore. All of them drew their saint weapons to face the enemy. They knew extremely well that against the experts of the 100 races, it would be fight of life or death. They would not show mercy just because they were members of the protector clans. There were a little more saint kings of the 100 races than the humans. Coupled with that fact that they had saint kings at great perfection leading them, the humans fell to a disadvantage as soon as they began fighting. No one dared to use everything they had. If the ripples of battle killed off several 100,000 or even millions of people, none of them could leave unscathed. As a result, there was no earth-shaking disturbances while the several dozen saint kings fought in the air. Only the space cracked and healed continuously. How dare you? Do you think that your lives are too easy? In all these years, we've never attacked you out of our own accord, yet you've begun invading our Tianyuan continent. People of the 100 races, are you declaring war on the Tianyuan continent? The saint kings from the protector clans angrily swore as they fended off the 100 races. All of them used secret techniques to secretly communicate with their clans. The item has been obtained. Don't waste time here, let's go. The Saint King at great perfection who had taken the beast fur coldly gave a command before swiftly retreating. He created a space gate in a region of stable space and left through it. The other experts of the 100 races did not get drawn into the battles either. They all knocked back their opponents with powerful strikes before quickly disappearing into the space gate. In the blink of an eye, all the Saint Kings of the 100 races that had appeared suddenly disappeared. It had been less than 20 seconds since they had arrived. The whole occurrence was extremely sudden. The human Saint Kings all floated there with sunken faces. Some of them even had residual blood at the corner of their mouths. The battle was very short, but a few of them had been injured. 100 races, how dare you invade our Tianyuan continent? We will not let this matter go so easily, the bald old man from a protector clan roared at the sky. A powerful killing intent radiated from him, tempting to destroy his surroundings. In ancient times, the humans of the Tianyuan continent really were not the opponents of the 100 races, but the era was different now. They inhabited the Tianyuan continent that was rich with resources while the 100 races lived on the rural wasteland continent. They were nowhere near overall strength of the Tianyuan continent. They were no longer as great as before. Another few space gates were suddenly ripped open. A few Saint Kings from protector clans had received the request for help, so they urgently hurried over. What's happened? A Saint King that had just arrived asked with a deep voice. It's the 100 races. A great group of them suddenly invaded our continent and stole the treasure. A similar occurrence happened in the sky above the ancient clan. One of the two beast furs on the continent was in the medium-sized city while the other one was kept by an ancient clan. The two beast furs had drawn the attention of many experts on the continent, but they were all taken in the end by the experts of the 100 races who had appeared suddenly. For some time, the invasion of the 100 races and their action of taking the beast furs caused much irritation to the protector clans and peak-level experts. They swore that they would seek an explanation over this matter. However, as the members of the protector clans discussed the matter of the 100 races, the other 6 parties had already gathered outside the Shinshao sect, the Padian sect, the Yangji sect, the Tyrant's Blade School, the Heaven's Incense School, and the Moyuan clan of the 10 protector clans. Although the places where the 10 protector clans resided were extremely well hidden, the clans' residences were not secret to the experts of the 100 races. Chapter 1103, Invasion of the 100 Races, 3, Use the Forbidden Artifact. We need to break into the space of the protector clans as soon as possible and then use the forbidden artifact to charge through the obstacles so we can get the beast fur. All the leaders of the 6 parties gave out orders, giving the order to attack at the same time. A simple great saber stood outside the independent space of the Yangji sect. It radiated an extremely forceful presence. The saber was 100 meters long and brightly lit up the surrounding hundreds of meters. The weapon stood dead straight with its hilt pointed at the sky while the tip pointed down into the earth. A destructive energy rippled in the surroundings, causing the surroundings to violently tremble. Space distorted and became a mess as countless rocks nearby were reduced to dust. The Saint Kings at great perfection from the 100 races stood before the saber as they controlled it. They were very stern. The might of the forbidden artifact was just too great. Even when the two of them worked together, they found it rather difficult to control. Ha! The two Saint Kings roared at the sky in an earth-shaking manner, and a 5-meter-thick ray of light shot from the saber. It struck the space before them with lightning-like speed. The space there began to violently tremble. A huge crack in space appeared. What was revealed was not the pitch-black depths of the universe, but a beautiful, smaller world. The independent space inhabited by the Yangji sect was punctured by the forbidden artifact, causing the entire place to violently jolt. However, before the people of the Yangji sect could understand what was going on, the group of experts from the 100 races charged in from outside. They used the forbidden artifact to pave a path, killing whoever got in the way. They killed their way into the Yangji sect. Dong! The heavy sound of a bell rang from a divine hall within the sect. It was extremely loud and hurried and vaguely possessed the intention of going to war. It had been countless years since this bell had last rang. It was not controlled by people, it was automatic, and it would only ring when the Yangji sect faced the invasion of enemies. In the most central divine hall of the sect, a few white-robed great elders walked out in surprise. They called out, "There, enemies invading." All disciples faced the enemies immediately. As soon as they said that, the great elders saw 30 Saint Kings rushing over with a forbidden artifact. It's the members of the 100 races. The 100 races has invaded our Yangji sect, and they've actually brought a forbidden artifact from the ancient times. The great elders' expressions drastically, no longer able to remain as composed as before. Use the Emperor Armament in the forbidden grounds quickly and activate the encirclement of the 18 halls, a great elder called out. Without any hesitation, he shot off toward the forbidden grounds as fast as he could while the other great elders followed behind him. He wants to go activate the Emperor Armament. Stop him. A cry rang out among the people of the 100 races. Immediately, a few of them broke from the group and pursued with lightning speed. However, this was still the lair of the Protector clan. There were many hidden dangers. The experts were suddenly stopped by a powerful sword chi that shot into the air, allowing the great elders to enter the forbidden ground successfully. We'll stop them from controlling the Emperor Armament and keep them busy for as long as we can, a pursuing Saint King of the 100 races called out and charged into the forbidden grounds. He wanted to stop the Yangji sect great elders from activating the Emperor Armament. Very soon, violent ripples of battle erupted in the forbidden grounds near the back of the independent space. The experts of the 100 races began fighting against the great elders in the forbidden grounds. On the other side, 2 Saint Kings at great perfection paved a path with the forbidden artifact. They lead a group of people as they hurried toward the divine hall in the center of the sect. During that time, saint rulers of the Yangji sect continuously flew up without any regard for themselves. They wanted to stop the advance of the 100 races, but they were all heavily injured without any exceptions. Most of their lives ended up dangling on a fine thread, while some of them were even killed off. After all, the people who attacked the Protector clans this time were all the experts of the Wasteland continent. No matter how powerful the Protector clans were, it was difficult to fend off all the Saint Kings of the 100 races. Now was especially the case. 3 Saint Kings of the Yangji sect had yet to return because of the beast furs, so there was only 4 experts who remained in the clan. Faced against enemies that outnumbered them several times over, they were not their opponents. Even in their own lair, as a Protector clan, it was difficult for them to repel the attack. Boom! The entire space violently shook as violent energy shot into the sky, almost destroying the independent space. The group of Saint Kings had already began attacking the divine hall with their powerful forbidden artifact. They had found out that the beast fur was stored in the divine hall long ago. The power of a forbidden artifact was enough to take on an Emperor Armament from a Protector clan. The strike was like a Saint Emperor's attack, creating a huge, thick crack along the divine hall of the Yangji sect. At this moment, a great pressure forcefully pressed down from the sky. 18 mountainous divine halls appeared in empty space and began to fall with extremely vast ripples of energy and terrifying pressures. Each and every single divine hall was made by a saint emperor. They were left behind by the saint emperor ancestors of the Yangji sect, creating an extremely powerful defensive formation to protect the Yangji sect. The 18 divine halls shined with a blinding light as the divine hall's energy circulated within them. The light formed an extremely obscure connection between all the divine hall, joining all 18 as one and strengthening their defense. It's the Yangji sect's encirclement of the 18 halls. This is their strongest defense, so don't get caught in it. Use the forbidden artifact to quickly smash through the encirclement, an old man who was controlling the forbidden artifact growled. Afterward, he assisted the other experts to send the forbidden artifact straight at the 18 divine halls in the sky. They struck out as hard as they could. The 100-meter-long saber fell as it emanated a dazzling light. It struck the 18 divine halls with an unstoppable force, but when they collided, no sound was produced at all. The might of the saber turned out to be like a rock thrown into the sea, absorbed by the 18 divine halls. A single forbidden artifact isn't enough to break through the defense. Everyone pour their strength and activate the second forbidden artifact. One of the people in control of the first forbidden artifact called out. Immediately, a vast, violent energy rippled in the surroundings. The second forbidden artifact was activated by the people of the 100 races. It was a pitch-black war hammer, controlled by a dwarven Saint King and assisted by 3 other people. The black war hammer was not big, in fact, it could be described as exquisite. It was only 30 centimeters long, but it radiated with a presence that did not match up to its size at all. It turned into a black streak of light as it shot into the sky. The hammer and saber worked together, gathering the force of 2 forbidden artifacts to strike the 18 divine halls together. Finally, the amount of energy that the divine halls could absorb was reached, and with a rumble, all the divine halls violently shook. Tiny cracks appeared on each divine hall. However, since the 18 divine halls shared their power, the cracks healed very quickly. The encirclement of the 18 halls continued to press down. Its tremendous might caused the space below to twist, as if it were about to shatter. Even saint emperors will struggle to break free once caught in the encirclement of the 18 halls. We need to use the forbidden artifacts to keep it at bay and prevent them from descending. Everyone else entered the divine hall of the Protector clan and seized the beast fur, ordered an expert among the 100 races. The remaining people immediately left the group. One of them drew the third forbidden artifact, striking the central divine hall under the support of several people. He smashed through the outer walls and made it to the interior. Almost the moment they stepped in, the various powerful formations were activated within the divine hall. Although they could kill off Saint Kings, they were nothing before the forbidden artifacts of the 100 races. A violent rumble rang out from the back of the independent space as a mountain turned to dust in an instant. The several Saint Kings that had gone over to keep the great elders busy all flew back as they vomited blood. At the same time, an extremely terrifying ripple of energy appeared there. Shit, the Emperor Armament has been awoken. Everyone else head over. We need to stop it from fully awakening with everything we have. We don't have a fourth forbidden artifact, said an expert of the 100 races. He was extremely serious. At that moment, all the experts of the 100 races worked extremely well together. The experts that had entered the divine hall stepped out without saying anything else and rushed over to where the Emperor Armament was. Only the experts controlling the forbidden artifact stayed behind to break through the obstructions of the divine hall and to retrieve the beast fur. An ancient, 30-odd meter-long sword stood in the forbidden grounds of the Yangji sect. Layers of inscriptions flashed in the surroundings, glowing with a blinding light. In the surroundings, the 4 great elders of the Yangji sect sat with their legs crossed and eyes closed. 2 of them wore tattered clothes with blood at the corner of their lips while the other 2 were also pale. They were all rather injured. A hazy glow enveloped the 4 of them from the ancient sword. The light seemed like nothing, but it contained an unimaginable strength. It could repel any foreign attacks while the four of them activated the ancient sword. Rise! Suddenly, the four great elders all called out in unison. They suddenly pressed their hands against the formations on the ground and copious amounts of energy unceasingly poured out, causing the inscriptions to become blinding. The Emperor Armament began to violently tremble as a frighteningly vast energy pulsed around it. Afterward, the Emperor Armament began to slowly rise out of the earth. The vast pressure became denser and more powerful. It was like a primordial beast slowly waking up from its slumber. Chapter 1104, Power of an Emperor Armament. God damn it. The power of the Protector clan's Emperor Armament seems much more powerful than in the records. We need to suppress the Emperor Armament quickly. We can't let it be drawn from the ground. A person cried out from afar, and the group that had separated from the central divine hall had arrived. They all arrived above the ancient sword, striking at the sword's hilt in unison to prevent the sword from being drawn. The sword slowly sank by a little. With that, the four great elders of the Yangji sect looked at each other before spitting out a mouthful of essence blood at the Emperor Armament, which led to an even more violent eruption of the Emperor Armament's energy, and it stopped sinking. It began to be pulled out bit by bit once more, but it was much slower than before. 20 experts of the 100 races called out together as they used everything they had to suppress the Emperor Armament. However, the weapon's power had far exceeded their imaginations, so even with all of them, they could not prevent the Emperor Armament from being drawn. God damn it, put some strength into it, the Saint Kings of the 100 races all yelled out furiously. They all knew that the moment the sword's true powers erupted would be it was drawn. However, they could not stop it even when they used everything within them. All they could do was delay it by some time. The space of the Protector clan began to tremble more and more violently. Great thick cracks littered the space around, slicing the space into a bunch of shapes. The independent space of the Yangji sect was approaching its limits while the world gate had been opened long ago. Many people hurriedly fled through it. Booms constantly rang out as the two forbidden artifacts fended off the encirclement of the 18 halls. The forbidden artifacts constantly struck out, preventing the 18 halls from descending, while the third forbidden artifact continuously worked its way through all the obstacles in the central divine hall, charging toward the location of the beast fur. The important divine hall that held all the power had already been reduced to a mess after standing for countless years in the Yangji sect. The four elders did everything they could to draw the Emperor Armament in the forbidden groans. 20 Saint Kings levitated above it, suppressing it together, but all they could do was slow it down from being drawn. As the Emperor Armament was slowly drawn out of the ground, the sword tip grew closer and closer to the surface of the earth. The experts of the 100 races could only panic even more with the current situation. The Emperor Armament's too powerful. We can't last much longer. Hurry up. One of the people suppressing the Emperor Armament yelled out. It was very loud and was heard by those who controlled the forbidden artifact in the central divine hall. The experts in the divine hall had already reached the top floor with their third forbidden artifact. They stopped before a heavy stone door, and above the stone door was a simple word, carved deeply, treasury. The beast fur is in there. Let's use the forbidden artifact to quickly break through this door, called out a Saint King. Then, all of them pooled their strength together to constantly strike the door with the weapon. However, the door was extremely tough, and only a tiny crack appeared after 3 attacks from the forbidden artifact. Don't stop. We need to give everything we have and use all the power in the forbidden artifact, one of them yelled out. Immediately, he poured whatever strength he had left into the forbidden artifact. Under the desperate push from the great elders, the ancient sword was finally drawn from the ground against the resistance of 20 Saint Kings. Its tip was clearly revealed under the sunlight, and immediately, a boundless presence gushed forth. All the Saint Kings of the 100 races felt their hearts tighten. The 4 great elders continuously formed hand seals, using a secret technique to control the Emperor Armament. A terrifying ripple of energy immediately erupted from the Emperor Armament, knocking away all the Saint Kings above it. Afterward, the Emperor Armament made half a turn in the air, causing its hilt to face the ground. The 4 great elders just happened to be standing below the hilt. Experts of the 100 races, I'll make you pay a good price for invading our Yangji sect. A great elder furiously roared out. The 4 of them controlled the Emperor Armament together as they swung it toward the 20 Saint Kings with a devastating might. The Emperor Armament was much more powerful than the forbidden artifacts. With a single stroke, space was immediately annihilated, and the whole place began to crumble. The independent space could no longer withstand the attack. The 4 great elders dismissed all other thoughts. All they wanted to do was slaughter all the experts of the 100 races to wash away the disgrace. The 20 Saint Kings' expressions all drastically. They were frightened by the presence of the Emperor Armament as an invisible and mysterious force trapped them. Their movements became sluggish, as if they were stuck in mud. Do not disperse, everyone. Gather together and use your strongest attack to repel the Emperor Armament, or we're all dead, a member of the 100 races yelled out. The surrounding energy began to surge and a 100-meter-tall giant appeared behind him. The figure was covered with muscles, filled with explosive force. This was a ruler of the giants. He was renowned and was once an extremely terrifying Saint Emperor, supreme among the giants. He was an avatar conjured by a giant through a secret technique. At the same time, another 100-meter-tall avatar appeared. It was a beauty who seemed to be in her 20s, radiating with an otherworldly presence. She seemed to have transcended mortal affairs. She was divine and noble while 6 clear wings stood behind her. She was the elder goddess that had always only existed in the legends. She had never appeared throughout history, so no one knew whether she had actually existed or not. The other experts all began to use abilities and secret techniques to conjure their ancestors shortly after, working together to repel the Emperor Armament. Several ancestors of various races and figures from various folklore were conjured by energy. They varied in appearance, but they all possessed a vast and tremendous energy to repel the Emperor Armament. The Emperor Armament swung out in front of them, colliding with the various secret technique and abilities with an unstoppable force. As the 2 supreme energies collided, the sky began to shake. The independent space collapsed at a faster and faster rate. The avatars conjured by the experts were all destroyed, and they all vomited blood as a result. They flew back uncontrollably, all now heavily injured. The power of a Protector clan's Emperor Armament was just too great. Only Saint Emperors could rival it, so it was not enough even when all of them worked together. In the center of the sect, several Saint Kings continued to use the forbidden artifacts to deal with the encirclement of the 18 halls. At that moment, the 18 divine halls suddenly began to shine with a blinding light and a powerful but gentle energy poured out from them. This energy fused into the space, temporarily stabilizing its collapse. The Emperor Armament was levitating again in the forbidden grounds. It radiated with a frightening might as it charged toward the 20 people under the control of the 4 great elders. Let's not take it head-on. Let's go. Personally experiencing the power of the Emperor Armament, the 20 Saint Kings no longer wanted to face it head-on. They all fled in the direction of the forbidden artifacts. The Emperor Armament pursued them as it flailed about with a devastating pressure. We'll send a forbidden artifact to fend off the Emperor Armament, the Saint King at great perfection said as he controlled the saber. He directed the saber with his companion to face off against the Emperor Armament. The forbidden artifact collided with the Emperor Armament with incomparable force. This was a clash between the 2 strongest weapons of the 2 races. With a boom, the 2 weapons brutally struck each other. The devastating ripple of energy was undoubtedly terrifying, causing the realm around them to collapse even though it had just been stabilized. The forbidden artifact was knocked back in the clash, and the 2 Saint Kings at great perfection both vomited blood. They stumbled back, now heavily injured. The encirclement of the 18 halls gave up on trapping the group of people from the 100 races. They flew high up into the air and fell in 18 different locations. Their powers were connected and enforced one another, so they were one whole unit, forcefully stabilizing the independent space. They stopped the space from collapsing any further. The second forbidden artifact was freed up since the 18 divine halls stopped attacking. Now 2 forbidden artifacts could fend off the Emperor Armament. They were embroiled in a tough struggle where they were equally matched. The surrounding space became extremely tough with the protection of the 18 Divine Hall, forcefully receiving the terrifying residual energy from the battle between the 3 weapons. At this moment, 3 loud whistles shot through the air. The 3 great elders had returned. They shot past the light barrier from the Emperor Armament and fused their strength with the other 4, resulting in 7 people controlling the Emperor Armament. Even the great elders had no idea just how powerful their Emperor Armament was, since even when they all worked together, they could not utilize its full power. However, the Emperor Armament would be able to display greater power with more people controlling it. The Emperor Armament's presence immediately skyrocketed with the additional 3 great elders. It suppressed the 2 forbidden artifacts. We need to endure it. They will suffer great backlashes from using the Emperor Armament, so they can't last for very long, explained a Saint King of the 100 Races. They knew the weaknesses of the Protector clan's Emperor Armaments extremely well. The power of the Emperor Armament far exceeds our expectations. If I had known earlier, I would have brought the War God Hall, a Hall Elder of the War God Hall regretfully lamented. And the Elven God Tree. If we had brought the Elven God Tree, we could have bound the Emperor Armament and prevented it from displaying such great power, an Elven expert gnashed his teeth. And the Heaven's Guard personally forged by our Dwarven ancestor. Even Saint Emperors can't smash through the shield. If it was here, we might have been able to block the Emperor Armament, said a Dwarven expert. In ancient times, the 100 Races was far more powerful than the humans. Even after losing a large number of experts from the invasion of the magical beasts, they were still able to beat the humans into constant retreat. If it were not for Mo Tianyun, the Tianyuan continent would have switched owners long ago. Their former strength was obvious, so they had quite a few treasures that had been passed down from that age. They had only brought offensive forbidden artifacts this time, not a single defensive one at all. Chapter 1105, Founding Ancestor of the Tyrant's Blade School. At this moment, the experts in the Central Divine Hall charged out. They yelled out, "The items with us." "All right, leave immediately," a Hall Elder of the War God Hall immediately ordered a retreat, and they gathered together soon after. They used the 3 forbidden artifact to cover themselves from the Emperor Armament so everyone could leave. The Saint Kings of the 100 Races made it out of the independent space inhabited by the Yangji sect and immediately ripped open a space gate to leave. The Great Elders did not want to let them go so easily, so they pursued them and controlled the Emperor Armament. However, they were unable to stop them. The burly middle-aged man, Gue Haidao, sat boldly atop the wave-breaking blade within the forbidden grounds of the Tyrant's Blade School. With his eyes closed, the pure energy hidden within the Emperor Armament flowed unceasingly into him. Gue Haidao had been absorbing the energy within the Emperor Armament since he had returned, so he improved extremely quickly. He had already reached the 3rd heavenly layer of Saint King, which was a stunning rate. Suddenly, Gue Haidao snapped open his eyes. His gaze seemed to be able to pierce space, to be able to see the world outside. His eyes flickered with visible sparks the moment he had opened them. Although Gue Haidao was only at the 3rd heavenly layer, he carried an unfathomable feeling about him. Suddenly, the world inhabited by the Tyrant's Blade School began to violently tremble. A huge spatial crack appeared as the independent space was ripped open by a supreme force. A group of 100 Races Saint Kings charged in with a forbidden artifact. The bell of the Protector clan reverberated loudly through the entire clan. The whole Protector clan had become especially alert after Gue Haidao's return. They were afraid that the news would break out before their founding ancestor had fully recovered his strength and, hence, lead to the attack of enemies. As soon as everyone heard the bell, they gathered their focus and emerged from their dwellings at the same time. Even a few experts in seclusion immediately came out. The great elders in the Central Divine Hall all walked out sternly. Their faces changed drastically when they noticed the identities of the invaders. They cried out, "Shit, it's the 100 Races. They must have known that our founding ancestor has come back. They must want to eliminate our ancestor before he has fully recovered." I never thought that the 100 races would be so well informed. It must be because of the other protector clans. They don't want our ancestor to recover and thus surpass them. We need to use everything we've been storing up and protect the ancestor no matter what. We'd rather die than have our ancestor be threatened. The great elders revealed their thoughts as determination flooded their eyes. At that moment, all of them had stopped considering their own lives. The invading Saint Kings used a forbidden artifact to pave a path toward the central divine hall. The 6 great elders all took control of a divine hall, flying threateningly toward the invaders. The great elders could not just charge up in a desperate struggle against so many Saint Kings. All they could do was use the resources of the Protector clan. The 6 divine halls all became 1,000 meters long, standing fearlessly like a mountain in front of the Saint Kings that charged over. Use the forbidden artifacts to break through their divine halls. An expert yelled out. Immediately, another 3 forbidden artifacts were activated. This party had brought 4 in total. Although the forbidden artifacts were not as powerful as the Emperor armaments of the Protector clans, they were still weapons of former Saint Emperors that had been passed down since ancient times. Each forbidden artifact was controlled by 2 to 5 Saint Kings, and every time one of them struck out, the attack was no weaker than a Saint Emperor's attack. Boom! With a deafening sound, the 4 forbidden artifacts viciously landed on 4 divine halls. Rock was thrown into the air and a huge crack appeared on the tough divine halls. We don't have much time, so we need to move fast. Use the 4 forbidden artifacts together to attack a single divine hall and destroy one of them, ordered an expert who controlled a forbidden artifact. The 3 forbidden artifacts all changed their targets. At that moment, the 4 weapons all targeted a single divine hall and struck out as hard as they could. With a boom, the divine hall was shattered into pieces. Fragments were launched into the sky, and the great elder within it shot toward a nearby divine hall. However, before the great elder could approach the divine hall, a vast presence locked onto him. It caused the space around him to freeze at that moment. A Saint King of the 100 races much more powerful than him had begun attacking him, heavily injuring him in just a few strikes. At the same time, the 4 forbidden artifacts worked together again. A powerful ripple of energy shot toward the second divine hall. A single forbidden artifact could produce attacks no weaker than a Saint Emperor, so when the 4 weapons attacked together, their power multiplied. Regular divine halls could not withstand a single attack. At this moment, an extremely powerful blade Shi appeared in the forbidden grounds of the Protector clan. A 30-meter-long machete flew out with lightning speed, receiving the attacks from the 4 forbidden artifacts. The machete and 4 forbidden artifacts clashed in the air, producing a deafening boom. Terrifying ripples of energy spread from high up, sweeping in all directions in the form of a storm. They ripped through space, creating a huge space crack and causing the entire realm to tremble. It actually began to collapse. Blocked by the machete, the 4 forbidden artifacts flew back to the space above their controllers. The machete was stabbed into the ground with its tip down. It radiated with a supreme presence, as if it was the king of the world. Not only did the machete block the 4 forbidden artifacts and protect a divine hall, it deterred all the Saint Kings as well. That's the Emperor armament of the Protector clan. No, why is the power so much more powerful than what was mentioned in the records? A Saint King hoarsely asked as he stared at the machete. The records have mentioned that there needs to be several Saint Kings using a secret technique together to utilize the Emperor armament. They need to go through quite a long process as well, so the way it has appeared is completely different from the records, said a hall elder. Doubt filled him inside. The 5 divine halls controlled by the great elders levitated high in the sky. The great elders appeared at the main entrance of the divine halls as they sternly stared at the wave-breaking blade. Worry filled all of them. They knew that their founding ancestor, who had been cultivating in the forbidden grounds, had struck out. However, he had yet to fully recover his strength, so how could he be an opponent of the 100 races? This made the great elders worry for their founding ancestor's safety. The space there constantly trembled as pitch-black cracks crisscrossed in the sky. The space was collapsing. At this moment, a figure emerged from the forbidden grounds. He walked in the air without any presence, just like an ordinary person, but every step of his would cover 1,000 meters. He moved steadily. He was Bi Dao. Under the attention of all the invading Saint Kings, he calmly emerged before sitting down on the hilt of the Emperor Armament. He calmly gazed past the invaders at ease, as if they were nothing important. Afterward, he pointed a finger at the sky and 18 divine halls immediately appeared out of nowhere. Each one radiated with a vast pressure. They connected with one another and shared their powers, as if they were just one. They then fused into the space at 18 different locations, rapidly stopping the collapse of the space, and the parts that had crumbled slowly healed back together. All the invaders became stern. Although Bi Dao's presence was not very powerful, he possessed a feeling where he was in control of everything. It made them astounded, oddly enough. This was because even Saint Emperors could not give off this feeling. "Who are you?" a Saint King asked with a deep voice. He glared at Bi Dao while the great elders who controlled the divine halls were ignored by everyone. "I am Bi Dao," he said with an extremely calm voice, but the invaders felt an unfathomable feeling below this calm surface. Even the Saint Kings at great perfection of the Protector clans would pale if they had to face 4 forbidden artifacts and so many Saint Kings. It just did not make sense why Bi Dao could remain so calm. "It doesn't matter who he is. Let's do it together. We need to retrieve the item no matter how severe the consequences are," yelled a Saint King controlling a forbidden artifact. He immediately directed a slash toward Bi Dao that radiated with a terrifying energy. At the same time, the 3 other forbidden artifacts struck out as well. They all attacked the sitting Bi Dao from different directions with devastating power. Bi Dao did not falter. He suddenly levitated while the 30-meter-long wave-breaking blade shrank to 1.5 meters long and rested in his hand. At that moment, his entire presence changed. A surging blade chi radiated from him, and he no longer seemed ordinary. Instead, he seemed more like a drawn blade. His great presence caused the sky to shake and the terrifying blade chi crisscrossed the empty space. Chapter 1106, Scaring off the 100 races. The wave-breaking blade was alight with a dazzling glow as a dense layer of blade chi engulfed Bi Dao. He was protected by the Emperor Armament's power. Bi Dao began to move. He slowly swung the weapon in his hand. Its movement contained the mysteries of space and the truths of the world. It seemed to be weak, but it possessed unimaginable might. It struck the 4 forbidden artifacts at the same time. Ding! 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 With 4 metallic sounds, just a single swing from Bi Dao blocked the attacks of the 4 forbidden artifacts at the same time. Each forbidden artifact was no weaker than a Saint Emperor, so Bi Dao's attack had blocked something equivalent to 4 Saint Emperors. Bi Dao did not use his own power but the power within the Emperor Armament. The wave-breaking blade was his own weapon, so even after fusing with the power of over 100 Emperor Armaments, he could still control it like one of his limbs. He could also use all of the power hidden inside and would not suffer backlashes like other people. The 4 forbidden artifacts were all sent flying. The Saint Kings of the 100 races used a lot of force before regaining control once more while the Emperor Armament remained steady in Bi Dao's hand. Over 100 Emperor Armaments had been fused into a Protector clan's Emperor Armament, so they were incomparable to the forbidden artifacts. Just from this aspect of strength, the Emperor Armaments from the Protector clans were far, far more powerful than Saint Emperors. The Emperor Armament is too powerful. "Let's fuse the 4 forbidden artifacts and use the Blood's Mark to break through with force," suggested a hall elder. With that, the controllers of the other 3 forbidden artifacts did not show any hesitation. The forbidden artifacts immediately gathered together before their controllers all spat out a mouthful of essence blood, allowing the weapons to skyrocket in power. They immediately became weakened after spitting out the mouthful of blood. Not only did it contain their essence, it also contained some of their vitality. It was a self-cannibalizing method to obtain more power. The terrifying energy pulsed from the 4 forbidden artifacts like dragons soaring into the sky. The 4 weapons then charged toward Bi Dao in a devastating fashion. The space they passed would shatter like mirrors. Even the 18 divine halls stabilizing the space could not withstand the attacks that were originally enough to devastate the whole place. Bi Dao remained as usual, and he uncaringly said, "100 races, with me, Bi Dao, present, you won't even be able to shake the foundations of the Tyrant's Blade School. You should leave." As he said that, Bi Dao suddenly tossed the wave-breaking blade into the air. As soon as it left his hand, it immediately expanded to be 100 meters long, shooting toward the 4 weapons with a terrifying glow. There were no violent sounds when the wave-breaker blade collided with the 4 forbidden artifacts. However, they both froze in the air where the edge of the Emperor Armament stopped a meter from the forbidden artifacts. The 2 supreme forces pushed against one another. The space between the 5 weapons had already been reduced to darkness. It did not close up even after a long time, while the surrounding several hundred meters of space distorted violently, all turning into a blur. "People of the 100 races, do you still want to keep fighting?" Bi Dao floated in the air calmly and completely composed. Although his personal strength was nothing in the eyes of the invading Saint Kings, he could control the Emperor Armament like another arm and stop all of them just by himself. All the invaders fell silent. They were shocked by the strength of the Emperor Armament. They knew that they had not fallen to the hands of Bi Dao this battle but to the Emperor Armament. The people who did not control forbidden artifacts looked at one another when they saw how the Emperor Armament and forbidden artifacts were locked in a stalemate. They all charged at Bi Dao in unison as if they were thinking the same thing. "Protect the founding ancestor." The great elders all began to move as well. They returned to the control centers of the divine halls and piloted the divine halls down, smashing toward the invaders. Bi Dao gently sighed, "Looks like you're stubborn." Gently extending a finger, a few powerful blades of light shot from the wave-breaking blade. They chopped toward the charging Saint Kings with unbelievable speed in the form of white lights. The blades of light contained the might of a Saint Emperor, and they were sharp enough to cut through space. They were unimaginably powerful, such that the Saint Kings could not block or dodge them. Spurt. Before the divine halls had fallen, the blades of light passed through their bodies. All that was left was an extremely thin crack in their chests. There was not a drop of blood at all. This was because all the blood in the wound had evaporated the instant the blades of light had passed through them. The Saint Kings were all drastically shocked. They immediately lowered their heads to inspect their chests, and they paled as a result. They could feel that their organs had silently disappeared, but what terrified them was that they did not feel any pain. "I don't want to kill you, or you would have been dead already," Bi Dao leisurely said as he looked at them calmly. The Saint Kings all stumbled back in fright with that. At that moment, they finally understood just how terrifying the middle-aged man was, even though he did not seem much stronger than them. Bi Dao then looked at the Saint Kings in charge of the forbidden artifacts. He helplessly shook his head and gently said, "Wave-breaking blade, after so many years, so many Emperor armaments have fused with you. Your power far exceeds regular Emperor armaments now, so erupt. Show them your power." A gleam of light flashed through Bi Dao's eyes, and the next moment, an indescribably vast power erupted from within the wave-breaking blade. It immediately disrupted the stalemate with the 4 forbidden artifacts, jolting them far off into the distance. They collided into 4 mountains in the distance, turning them into dust. The terrifying energy continued to spread toward the people in control. They were all knocked back as well and were unable to stabilize themselves. A sharp blade chi was also present in the ripple of energy. It passed through their bodies and heavily wounded them all. All the experts spat blood at the sky as they became sheet white. They had never been so shocked in their lives. 30 Saint Kings with plenty at great perfection, coupled with 4 forbidden artifacts, were actually not enough to deal with the Emperor armament of a protector clan. This was unbelievable. Impossible, this is impossible. This is definitely impossible. Emperor armaments of protector clans cannot be this powerful, a hall elder cried out. He was badly shaken. Disbelief was spelled out on his face. He had studied the emperor armaments of the 10 protector clans in the records of the War God Hall, so he had an extremely deep understanding in regards to their strength. That's only because the people who control the emperor armament are others and not the owner. They obviously can't utilize the true power of the emperor armament. Even saint emperors can't. Bi Dao said indifferently as he stood with his arms crossed. The wave-breaking blade had shrunk once more and had been stabbed into the ground beside him. It radiated with a supreme presence. The people of the 100 races did not understand what Bi Dao meant. They refused to believe him to be the founding ancestor of the Tyrant's blade school and the true owner of the emperor armament. Retreat. A saint king at great perfection waved his hand and decisively retreated. The other experts of the 100 races dared not to stick around. They all glanced at the weapon by Bi Dao with lingering fear before all leaving. They knew that their opponent had shown mercy, or he could have easily killed off all of them. The invaders swiftly retreated, completely vanishing in the blink of an eye. All that was left was a huge mess, evidence of what had happened before. Founding Ancestor, the 100 races have actually tried to invade our protector clan. They've gone too far, so why not make them stay? Founding Ancestor, why not kill off all of them? If they all die, it'll be a great loss for the 100 races. The great elders all arrived beside Bi Dao and asked him courteously after the invaders had retreated. They were all confused, and at the same time, they were filled with shock. They have never imagined that their founding ancestor would be so terrifying before he had even recovered his strength. Bi Dao gently shook his head and said, "The 100 races aren't as simple as you think they are. The ones who support them are very powerful, such that we cannot afford to provoke them. Remember to be careful in the future and avoid taking the 100 races on as enemies." The great elders became even more doubtful with that explanation. One of them said, "Founding Ancestor, the 10 protector clans along with Mercenary City are the most powerful organizations on the Tian Yuan continent. The Beast God continent has their 3 saint emperors and the Beast God Hall, but that doesn't mean we can't match up to them. The sea race only guards their own territory and never fights with us. I just don't understand what exactly supports the 100 races that we need to fear. It's better for you to not know some things. If you do want to know, I will tell you if you surpass Saint Emperor and reach the Origin Realm." With that, Bi Dao returned to the Forbidden Grounds with the wave-breaking blade, leaving the great elders standing there puzzled. The Yangji sect and the Tyrant's Blade School were not the only protector clans to suffer attacks from the 100 races. There were also the Shinshao sect, the Padian sect, the Heaven's Incense School, and the Moyuan clan. However, the 100 races managed to get to all the other central divine halls except for the Tyrant's Blade School, who managed to repel them. Their beast furs were stolen, and they suffered great losses. The great elders of the Yangji sect and Padian sect all suffered intense backlashes, which they struggled to recover from due to activating their emperor armaments. The great elders of the Shinshao sect, Heaven's Incense School, and Moyuan clan were all stopped by the invaders before they could get to their forbidden grounds, so they could only defend using divine halls. In the end, the invading Saint Kings smashed through several divine halls where quite a few great elders dangled in danger. The Saint Kings in danger used secret techniques to flee into the encirclement of the 18 halls in the end. Chapter 1107, Attacking Mercenary City. The 8 parties from the 100 races attacked 6 protector clans and managed to retrieve 5 beast furs from them as well as the 2 that had been scattered across the continent. They managed to take back 7 pieces in total. After that, the 8 parties still were not satisfied. They gathered once more outside Mercenary City, using the forbidden artifacts to attack the city from above. Each party possessed 2 to 4 forbidden artifacts, so over 20 of them ravaged Mercenary City. The terrifying ripples of energy caused the earth to shake and the space to collapse. Mercenary City was immediately closed off from the attack of outsiders. Grand Elder Tianjian personally led a group of elders to the city from their independent space, but when they saw over 200 Saint Kings outside the barrier, they all became extremely stern. This was almost all the Saint Kings of the 100 Races. Mercenary City was indeed very powerful since it was the only organization that could rival the 10 Protector clans. However, it would have been a futile attempt if they tried to repel all the Saint Kings of the 100 Races just by themselves. Mercenary City was not in possession of a powerful emperor armament like the 10 Protector clans. All they had was a divine hall with offensive capabilities from Mo Tianyun, but it could only be piloted by Saint Emperors. The attack from the 100 Races with more than 20 forbidden artifacts shocked all the upper echelon of Mercenary City. All their known elders were mobilized. The 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th elders were all Saint Kings of the 8th or 9th heavenly layer, while the 6th, 7th, and 8th elders were all Saint Kings as well. The weakest one of them was at the 5th heavenly layer. All known Saint King elders of Mercenary City had appeared at that moment, sternly staring at the sky. At the same time, 6 disheveled, beggar-like old men in hemp clothing emerged from a space gate from an extremely desolate independent space. Their messy hair covered their faces, so their appearances could not be seen clearly at all. Only a few, deep wrinkles were exposed vaguely. Many elders of Mercenary City courteously glanced at the 6 beggar-like old men. They too were elders of Mercenary City, but they rarely ever appeared before people and never interfered with any matters of the city. They always remained secluded in an independent space, which was why almost no one knew about their existence. It's Elder Ku Bai and the others. I never thought they'd still be alive. I heard the 6 elders were people who came from the same era as Grand Elder Tian Jian and that they're even older than the Grand Elder. They're all at great perfection and are only alive now because they've extended their lives by 200 years through the use of 10,000-year-old heavenly resources. However, they only have 100 years left, explained an elderly Saint King elder. Nowadays, it was extremely difficult to reach Saint Emperor. The various Saint Emperors were gradually whittled down, with the 10 Protector clans and Mercenary City experiencing the decline the most. They had always had Saint Emperors since the ancient times where a new Saint Emperor would be born immediately after another had passed away. However, it had already been over 10,000 years since a Saint Emperor had appeared for the 10 Protector clans and Mercenary City. The only Saint Emperor was the Path Lord of Carnal Desires, an exile of the Pure Heart Pavilion. He had only reached Saint Emperor after creating his Path of Carnal Desires. As a result, Saint Kings at great perfection were almost invincible in the present day that lacked Saint Emperors. Including Tian Jian, 7 Saint Kings at great perfection had appeared this time. This hidden strength was far greater than any Protector clan. The 6 beggar-like Saint Kings stood beside each other. They did not radiate any presences, as if they were fused with the surroundings. They seemed to be like a world of their own where they reigned supreme. A heavy pressure would radiate from them unconsciously. Their eyes shined like torches. Although they all seemed ancient, they were brimming with energy. Their sharp gazes were like swords, causing the space before them to slightly twist. Has the 100 Races gone crazy to attack our Mercenary City? Looks like the 100 Races find their days too peaceful. We can't let them do this. Summon all the experts immediately and send them to suppress the 100 Races. A few Saint Ruler elders of Mercenary City all righteously discussed the situation. They were utterly furious. The Saint Kings of Mercenary City all silently stared at the 100 Races as they attacked the barrier, but a cold light flickered in their eyes. The 100 Races had sent over 200 experts this time, and they were all Saint Kings. They had even brought over 20 forbidden artifacts. This was not something the dozen or so Saint Kings of Mercenary City could repel. All they could do was use what had been passed down from ancient times. They can't break through the barrier. Even Saint Emperors can't conquer Mercenary City. Immediately contact the 10 Protector clans, the ancient clans, and the people of the 3 great empires. The experts of the 100 Races have boldly invaded, so get them to provide reinforcements immediately. We need to defend our continent's dignity, Tian Jian said. He was extremely composed. Yes, Grand Elder. The news of the 100 Races invasion was sent to the Protector clans, ancient clans, and 3 great empires through secret techniques, which immediately lead to a huge disturbance. The 4 protector clans that had not been attacked, the Yuan sect, the Heartless School, the Changyang clan, and the Pure Heart Pavilion, sent all their experts, directly ripping open space gates to provide reinforcements. The 5 protector clans that had had their beast furs stolen were even more straightforward. They all dragged their injured bodies over to Mercenary City with their Emperor armaments, swearing to fight the 100 races to the death. After breaking into their central divine halls, not only did the 100 races take the beast furs, they even ransacked them, robbing them of a large amount of treasure. They suffered an extremely severe loss. The ancient clans and 3 great empires all sent Saint Kings for reinforcement. Only the people from the Tyrant's Blade School did not appear. At the same time, the barrier of Mercenary City displayed its might as well. It began to glow brighter than usual. It did not begin to attack the invaders, but instead rebounded all the attacks that landed on it. The forbidden artifacts were treasures passed down from ancient times. They were the weapons of former Saint Emperors, and they were so powerful that several Saint Kings were needed to control just one. Each weapon could use attacks at the level of Saint Emperors, so a rebound from the barrier was equivalent to the 100 races sustaining the attacks from over 20 Saint Emperors. The Saint Kings of the 100 races were shocked and immediately used their forbidden artifacts to block the rebounding attacks. The attacks threw them into confusion where the weaker people sustained rather heavy wounds from the violent ripples of battle. "We can't conquer Mercenary City. Retreat," an expert of the 100 races gave a decisive order. All the reinforcements had arrived, so they knew that if they stayed any longer, there would be a vicious battle. The casualties would be innumerable. All the experts of the 100 races did not become too absorbed in battle. Before the reinforcements could completely encircle them, they ripped open space gates and left. The 100 races had retreated out of the Tianyuan continent, but the disturbance they had caused this time was undoubtedly gigantic. Although it did not affect the medium or low-level cultivators, it shocked all the high-level experts. The 5 protector clans that had been ransacked were impacted and fell into a fury. Their anger and killing intent reached an utmost limit, swearing to mobilize the entire continent to wipe out the 100 races. Soon afterward, representatives of all the major organizations on the continent held a meeting that had not occurred in several tens of thousands of years. They sternly discussed the invasion of the 100 races, and over half of them suggested gathering all of the continent's power to devastate the 100 races and wash away their shame. Only a few people suggested that everyone should consider the big picture should and not mobilize everyone. It led to an extremely intense argument between both sides. In the end, a great elder from the Tyrant's Blade School came to Mercenary City and expressed that their protector clan would not be taking part in the expedition. He also explained that although the 100 races had weakened now, their heritage was extremely rich and no weaker than the Tianyuan continent. Once they invaded the 100 races, the overall strength of the continent would suffer and provide the Beast God continent with an opportunity. A great elder of the Pure Heart Pavilion followed up. The invasion of the 100 races this time was only to take back some items. They did not do anything overly outrageous, so why mobilize so many people? Do you really want a war between the 2 continents and make blood flow like rivers? Do you really only intend to stop after you see a sea of corpses? Afterward, a few representatives expressed their disagreement as well. They all had their reasons, which all considered the big picture. The Tianyuan continent's conquest of the 100 races came to an end. They failed to get everyone to agree. There was no chance of victory if just half the continent, or even less than that, went ahead to conquer the 100 races. The 100 races had settled down on the wasteland continent for so long. They could be described as deeply rooted and rich in heritage. Each race had their own supreme, forbidden artifacts. They had only brought a portion of them this time. Soon after, a secret letter arrived in the hands of each representative, shocking them all. After attacking Mercenary City, the experts of the 100 races actually attacked the Beast God Hall on the Beast God continent. All 3 magical beast Saint Emperors emerged, while the Tiger Emperor Lankyros faced the attacks from 3 different forbidden artifacts and was thus heavily injured. The several dozen experts cultivating within the hall all came out to fend off the enemies, and more than 10 of them were slain by the forbidden artifacts. There were even more who were injured. This battle included Saint Emperors. Over 200 Saint Kings of the 100 Races fought an extremely intense battle with the various experts of the Beast God Hall, to the point where the earth cracked and the sky dimmed. Half the continent quaked, kicking up tsunamis that reached into the skies. All the experts cultivating outside could sense the heart-trembling might. However, the 100 Races still failed to get into the Beast God Hall in the end. The Beast God Hall was no ordinary divine hall. It was left behind by the winged tiger god, and it was so tough that even Saint Emperors could not damage it. The invaders failed to even scratch the divine hall after striking it with the combined force of all the forbidden artifacts, and they lost over a dozen experts in the end, so they could only helplessly retreat. The invasion of the Beast God continent immediately shocked the upper echelons of the Tian Yuan continent. No one had ever thought that the 100 Races would be so reckless. First, they attacked the lairs of the Protector clans and Mercenary city, and then they invaded the Beast God continent. Were they seeking death? The Beast God continent was something that the Tian Yuan continent feared very much. They had a total of 3 Saint Emperors. Was there any force daring enough to take them on? You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.